Doom afternoon, everybody, and welcome to DNN, the Doomers News Network, where we just tell it how it is and we don't put any lipstick on that pig because somebody has to. And I am joined today once again by my friends Travis and Melody, my fellow Doomers, and we have got a great show for you today. I'm going to turn it over to my buddy Travis. How are we doing today, Trev?
I'm hanging in there, man, just battling through a flu right now and a little bit exhausted, but the Doomers never sleep. We got some great stories. We're going to start with Jack doing This Week in Dune, and then Melody and I are going to do 2 stories each. I'm going to start with doing just a house market update from Redfin, and then Melody's going to go into an insane story about I'm just going to call it, we didn't really kind of come up with a title on this one, but it's Brazil. This is what I put, Melody. Brazil's communist censorship, something going on behind the scenes. All right, that's the third story. I don't know if that title was all right. All right, and then the next one I'm going to do, that's going to be a little bit more info and details on what's going on in Florida with the massive condo crisis. So I'll cover HOA, taxes, what's going on with citizens insurance, a lot happening in Florida. And then we're going to end this podcast out with a story by Melody about the DOJ investigation into the prison profiting system. A lot of crazy stuff to go over. Happy Saturday, everyone. We appreciate you being here. And Jack, whenever you're ready, man.
All right, Travis, if we could share my screen, sir, because it is time for This Week in Doom. And the main doom of the week was the world's slow and accelerating descent into totalitarianism continues this week. And there was several stories to that effect all over the world, and they all have a very similar twist to them. Let's start with this one here. Shown, obviously, this guy everybody probably knows. And then this Lex Luthor-looking MFer here, that is a guy by the name of Alexandre de Moraes. He is a judge in Brazil, and he has just ordered the nationwide shutdown of X, formerly known as Twitter, across the entire country. Not only has he ordered the shutdown of X, but he has announced that they will be fining any Brazilian citizen up to $9,000 a day for using a VPN to access Twitter. And just to put that $9,000 fine in perspective, the median household income in Brazil is $16,921 a year. So that's basically the equivalent of a $50,000 fine a day for using Twitter in X. Now, Melody is going to go into more detail on this story in just a few minutes, but this basically boils down to the fact that X was ordered to provide the name of an individual that Brazil could reach out to every time there is something on X that they want censored. And Elon Musk is refusing to provide the name of that individual, saying X is dedicated to free speech. And I got a couple of quotes here. This is from an ex-company statement. When we attempted to defend ourselves in court, Judge de Moraes threatened our Brazilian legal representative with imprisonment, and then the legal representative resigned. Even after she resigned, the judge froze all of her bank accounts, the company wrote. Imagine being fined for formerly working for a company and quitting because you're in an impossible situation, and they take all your money anyway. X and its former incarnation, Twitter, have been banned in several countries, mostly authoritarian regimes such as Russia, China, Iran, Myanmar, North Korea, Venezuela, and Turkmenistan. Other countries such as Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt have also temporarily suspended X before, usually to quell dissent and unrest. Twitter was banned in Egypt after the Arab Spring uprisings, which some dubbed the Twitter Revolution, but it has since been restored. And again, guys, always ask yourself, because a lot of times they're saying, oh, it's only about far-right disinformation or we're trying to stop crime. Always imagine, if you're in favor of one side having the power, imagine the other side having that same power. And if it changes your opinion, then chances are nobody should have that power. Keep that in mind as we go through these stories. And meanwhile, France is saying, hold my wine, because also going on this week, we had Telegram CEO Pavel Durov was arrested in France. Now, Durov, billionaire Telegram CEO Pavel Durov, was invested in France on Saturday. Multiple French officials confirmed amid an apparent investigation into whether Telegram, a freewheeling and sometimes controversial messaging and social networking platform, allows crime on its app, in part due to a lack of moderation. And it's that last part that you got to pay attention to, guys, the lack of moderation, because I think that's really what is going on here, because there is crime that happens on pretty much all of these apps, but certain apps are letting the government see behind the scenes and allowing them to order certain messaging to be suppressed, and some apps are not allowing it. Allegations against Durov, who is also a French citizen, include that his platform is being used for child sexual abuse material and drug trafficking, and that Telegram refused to share information or documents with investigators when required by law. And let me just say how encouraged I am to see global power centers taking seriously the distribution of child sex abuse material. And I would just remind everybody about this guy. It's amazing. I guess they finished solving all of this crime because now they're arresting the Telegram CEO, and I'm sure it's got nothing to do with censorship or turning over the keys to the back channels of social media and everything about stopping child sexploitation. And that's why law enforcement and power centers around the world are still not resting as they relentlessly pursue the names of all of Jeffrey Epstein's clients, right? Oh, that's right. They're not doing that. Maybe we'll just move right on from that one. But luckily, this kind of thing never happens in the United States, right? Not so much. Mark Zuckerberg released a letter to Congressman Jim Jordan this week confirming the unfounded conspiracy theory. Remember that conspiracy theory? You know, we're going to go ahead. We're just going to don the tinfoil hat because Zuckerberg basically confirmed yet another formerly crazy conspiracy theory was in fact the truth. In a letter to Rep. Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Zuckerberg alleges that the officials, including those from the White House, repeatedly pressured Facebook for months to take down certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. They censored jokes. All right, just take that in for a second. They made jokes against the rules. And by the way, I am wondering, will we be labeled with that COVID-19 context as YouTube often does? I don't know if that's going to happen. I did say it out loud, and the algorithms often peruse content. And if they hear the word COVID-19, they slap that little context label on it. So a little social experiment. Will we be labeled for that as well? Zuckerberg also expressed regret for Meta's downplaying of content related to coverage by the New York Post about Hunter Biden ahead of the 2020 election that the FBI warned may be rooted in a Russian disinformation operation. We hear a lot about election interference and a lot about Russian disinformation. Remember, guys, this story ended up being true. Facebook was pressured by the FBI. I wonder what the FBI used as a basis for that pressure in order to censor a story that would prove to be very damaging to one candidate, something that Facebook and the FBI have still not answered for. Now, shifting gears a little bit away from totalitarian nonsense, let's talk a little bit about business. And we are looking at Warren Buffett here, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, a.k.a. the Oracle of Omaha. And we got the story this week that once again, Berkshire Hathaway has been selling Bank of America stock. They sold about $982 million of Bank of America stock. That makes their total sales since just mid-July $5.4 billion. It's worth pointing out that Berkshire Hathaway still has about $36 billion worth of Bank of America stock, but they are selling stocks hand over fist and raising cash. And check out this. This is the amount of cash at Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire's cash pile hits a record $277 billion. They have been slashing their stake in Apple and Bank of America and virtually all of their stocks, now sitting on their biggest cash pile ever. They are 25% allocated to cash right now, which means Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors in the world, is pre-positioned for a crash in the stock market. He is getting ready to go on a shopping spree and buy up assets on the cheap after whatever happens. So keep that in mind as retail continues to pile into stocks and continues to bid up tech stocks to obscene valuations. One of the most famous investors in the world is sitting on more cash, selling stocks as retail buys them. In another story going on overseas this week, pay attention to what's happening in Libya. Could be the makings of another civil war in this country. Now, Libya has been divided into two different governments, one in the western part of the country that is backed by most Western and NATO governments, and then another in the eastern part of the country. There's been an uneasy truce since about 2020 in Libya. But just this week, Libya's oil output falls by more than half due to a political standoff. And this centers around the central bank. Now, Libya produces about 1.25 million barrels of oil per day. and at least half of that, up to 1 million barrels per day, actually has been disrupted in oil production over this dispute over who is going to control the Libyan central bank. This week, the Western government seized control of the Libyan central bank, driving out the Eastern government representatives who were occupying the post. And in a kind of hilarious, kind of not story midweek, we got this one from Bloomberg. Libya's central bank coup turns to farce with a plea for passwords because the Eastern governors who were running the central bank, when they left, they took all the passwords to the systems with them. And now the Western government officials can't access Libya's central bank or banking system. And banks across the country have been frozen. Oil production has been shut down. Oil shipments have been halted because there's no way to process the payments. So keep an eye on what is happening in Libya. Also going on this week, something we talked about on Wednesday in our DNN update. Hindenburg Research, a famous short-selling firm, released an update about Super Microcomputer, one of the darlings of the AI mania. And in that short report, Hindenburg Research revealed that Supermicro had been dealing with third-party companies that weren't really third-party companies because these companies are run by the brother of Supermicro's CEO, Charles Lang. They all own shares of each other's companies, and that this is widespread opportunity for financial accounting fraud, something that I would remind everybody Supermicro has a documented history of. They were delisted in 2018 from the NASDAQ for failure to file timely financial reports. And then in 2020, they were charged for financial fraud by the SEC. A lot of their executives resigned in disgrace over that scandal. And another thing the Hindenburg report pointed out was that all of those executives were hired back 3 months after the SEC left the building. And it looks like they started doing the same things all over again. On top of that, there was things included about quality control issues at Supermicro, how Dell is taking a lot of their business, and how Supermicro is violating sanctions. And then just a day after that report, Supermicro all but confirmed what Hindenburg had accused them of. When this story hit, Supermicro slides on 10K delay following Hindenburg report. And I would just read this quote. The San Jose, California-based server maker requires additional time to complete its assessment of the design and operating effectiveness of its internal controls over financial reporting. This is a damning statement by Supermicro, which means, guys, our auditors probably won't sign off on our financial statements, and we need some time to make sure we're not doing fraud, even though we hired back the people who got caught doing the fraud last time. Supermicro stock took a dive on this news of the Hindenburg report and the delay of the financial reports. And one of Supermicro's biggest suppliers, NVIDIA, reported earnings over the week, and it was about as expected. Big revenue beat, big data center revenue beat by NVIDIA, but the market wasn't really excited about it. NVIDIA stock actually sold off a couple of percent on that news. Also, we got confirmation that NVIDIA's next generation Blackwell chips will be delayed due to some kind of a manufacturing defect that needs to be remedied prior to mass production. Those Blackwell chips were supposed to be being shipped after mass production as we speak, and it looks like we won't see those shipments begin until sometime in the fourth quarter. When pressed for details, NVIDIA executives were rather dodgy on the conference call, which may have added to investors' jitters over that stock. And last but not least, you may have seen this picture or this video going around. This is a Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua, which has taken over entire segments of Aurora, Colorado. These are undocumented migrants who have come into the country. For whatever reason, they were shipped to the Denver area and they settled in Aurora. And there was some back and forth between politicians who were claiming this story was real or it was the imagination. For example, we had Colorado's Governor Jared Polis dismiss the migrant gang takeover story as imagination earlier in the week. Although a day later, we had this story in CBS News, Venezuelan gang activity confirmed by Aurora officials after a release of a Colorado woman's surveillance video, which was the picture in question here, this one. Guys, this Venezuelan gang, Tren de Agua, they were settled in these apartment buildings and they have taken them over. They are wandering the grounds of these apartment buildings. They hospitalized the superintendent of the building. They beat him up, put him in the hospital, drove out all of the building's management. Now they are running the building as slumlords, collecting rent from people at gunpoint, even though they don't own the building, assaulting anybody who challenges their authority. and politicians seem content to just point fingers at each other rather than do anything. And it seems that when people call the police about this is what's going on, police are not responding unless serious crimes, i.e. shootings or murders, are happening. And some people are being told, why don't you just move out of the building, when calling the cops about armed gangs at their door demanding entry, robbing, and collecting rent from these people. Story to keep an eye on, what's going on in Aurora, Colorado. I suspect by the end of the month, this will be a hot button campaign issue. And thus ends This Week in Doom. Back to you, Travis.
That was a wonderful round of corruption and fraud, Jack. I appreciate that. Just wanted to pull up this comment real quick. I realized today that everyone picks their echo chamber. I've picked the doomy one. Hope it's the right call. I just wanted to caution you not to do that. If you really want a good idea of what's going on in the market, you have to look at all the opinions, and you actually, and this is out of love, I'm saying this, you have to stay away from echo chambers. You have to be around people that are sharpening their perspective constantly. Echo chambers can be dangerous. That's all I wanted to say. Wanted to give a shout out real quick, and I got a question for you, Jack. Appreciate you, Miss Grace. Ain't much, but you are burning at both ends. It is a lot. It is the token of what you're doing, the generosity, the love. We thank you for that tremendously.
Thank
I
you,
have
Sheila.
something here for you guys. This one is a good one. I don't know, Melody, maybe you know this one. Jack, maybe you know. How does the 25% cash allocation from Warren Buffett compare historically?
I glanced on a chart. They did at one point have a higher percent allocation to cash in the lead up to the GFC. They had a higher percent position. But as far as nominal dollar value, nothing comes close to this much cash. This is the biggest cash pile Buffett has ever sat on in his life.
Melody, anything else you want to add there? I'm going to get right into the house market update then. Good.
Travis,
okay.
Could I real quick? If I could, I just going through that, there was a lot of stories there, and I just want to recognize that there's really no way to tell these stories without your own personal bias shining through. And I obviously have mine. I have a very libertarian leaning, and I don't like criminals. I don't like pedophiles. I don't like gangs. But I think the worst criminal pedophile gangs in the world tend to be hiding in governments. And so I just want to acknowledge my own bias. Anytime I see a government reaching for power, my default is always going to be to push back on government. That's not to say things like Telegram. There are other sides of that story I didn't get into as in depth, like Russian troops are using Telegram to coordinate movements in Ukraine. Yes, there are criminals doing bad things on Telegram, right? There is child sexploitation going on there. But you know what? That's also happening on Instagram. That's also happening on Facebook. And I don't see Mark Zuckerberg in handcuffs right now, because Mark Zuckerberg plays ball with the corrupt global elite. And here he is pretending to be sorry about it with his letter, only because he's already been caught doing it. So again, I just have to tell you guys, and anytime you're faced with one of these stories and you're not sure about making up your mind, don't let the mainstream media tell you what your opinion is and then decide. Always ask yourself, if the other guy that I don't like had this power that they're demanding, would that worry me? Right? If Donald Trump was demanding the ability to point to specific stories and shut them down, would you be okay with that? And if the answer is no, then that should inform your decision right now. So that's
right.
My asterisk I would put on that reporting.
And I would just add too that, we also have to take into consideration that what we're witnessing is what we've called Lumi on Lumi violence, which is those people in the club who are fighting for power, and they are going to, they're going to do things like what Zuckerberg did. They're going to write this letter looking like the White Knight, when in reality, this is about, bargaining for specific power and things like that. And so just remember what you say all the time. And what we say is, it's a big club, or it's a small club actually, and none of us are members of it. And what we're looking at is pure performance most of the time. And I've worked for a politician. I can tell you this absolutely. So, but again, don't believe me, do your own research, go out there and don't base what your views solely on what we say. Go test it out like you did, Jack. I know a lot of people have issues with Hindenburg, right? They definitely have an agenda. We know this. So what did you do? You took the report and you tried to poke holes in it because you knew, okay, what are they really after here? And then I think you also found that that Hindenburg report was also kind of somebody else had written a lot of that previously.
The Orcafin. Yeah, he did it.
Orcafin, yeah.
Could we just share my screen one more time?
Yeah, I got you.
And then I'm going to get off my soapbox, guys.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
All right. If you are even entertaining the possibility about this Telegram arrest, and I understand there is criminal activity happening on Telegram. All right. But if you really believe that Pavel Durov was arrested because of child sexploitation on Telegram, look at this picture and then reevaluate that position. Do you really think this is about stopping the child sex trafficking? Do you really think it is? Because the government has the power to stop this today if they wanted to. The government has the power to tell us who were these rich, powerful people all over the world who were flying on this guy's plane and patronizing his establishments. All right. They know, and they still won't tell us. So do you really believe that thing about the Telegram guy, honestly, or does it have to do with something else? Again, that's all. We can get his face off the screen now. Who did not kill himself, by the way. And I think off the tinfoil hat.
I think what we're witnessing there is just evil working with evil. I mean, there's probably some backdoor schemes going on with Zuckerberg. Who knows, man? I'm going to get into the housing market update though, real quick. Good job, Jack. Always appreciate you, man. Always appreciate that. All right. And, fair disclosure, you guys, I'm not going to have the same energy. I barely made it to this broadcast. I am not doing well right now. I'm a little bit sick. I'm working like crazy. And we're going to start so I'm not going to be animated. I'm super sorry. We're just going to go over the data today. This is the demand data. And I wanted to show you guys, as of August 26th, what's going on as far as interest rates going down and demand going up. All right. So far, as you guys can see, I mean, interest rates have been plummeting since arguably the end of July. You guys, arguably since the end of April. So we went from about 7.22% all the way down to 6.35. This is the average. If you're listening to me, you're shopping your loan with a broker. Usually you're going to get a lower rate than what's average. So remember, shop your mortgage. You have a grace period once the first inquiry is ran. But demand is basically at a standstill. Demand's going down. It's gone up, like it's ticked up, but it's almost 100 basis point drop in interest rates. Okay. So if you go back again, and I showed you guys this at the beginning of this week, but if you go back to April, you can see the demand is lower than it was in April when the rates were almost 100 basis points higher. So I'm showing you guys this because so far, the rates going down has not led to a drastic, really increase at all as far as purchasing houses. And that's probably because of two things. Number one, the prices are too high. They went up too quickly, and incomes didn't go up enough to afford those prices. That's my opinion. Now I want to show you guys what's going on with Redfin. We have the updated report out. But first I want to show you how they're playing games, how they're manipulating us as the readers, and how they're trying to kind of manipulate our minds to, us to think that the housing market is more solid than it actually is. And what I want to do is I want to bring your attention to the dates and the median sales price. Okay. And this is all going to be for the 4-week rolling median. There's different levels of median. There's different proprietary information. This is the 4-week rolling average median for Redfin. Now look at this, guys. This is August 4th. Okay. So August 4th, they came out with a report. They said the median sales price right here, guys, list $389,750. Okay. So $389,750. Y'all see that. The next week, the median sales price goes down. Okay. You guys see that? Again, let me go back to next week. $389,750. 1 week later, this is lower. Okay, that's $500 lower at $389,250. But look at what they're saying. Look at their narrative, guys. I'm just reporting here. I wanted to keep my own opinion out for right now. Up slightly from a week ago. Okay, you see that right there. How could it be up slightly from a week ago when a week ago it was $389,750? It can't. That's impossible. It's fraud. They're revising the data to push the narrative. Now, that's August 11th. So next week comes by. Okay, it goes to $390, saying it's up $1,000 from a week earlier. Again, it's not $1,000 from a week earlier. It's $389,250. It is what it is, guys. But the crazy thing is now this week's came out. Okay, lower. Okay, again, look at August 18th. It's $390 now. Okay, this week's market report comes out the 25th. The median sales price is lower. You see, it's lower, and they're still saying, guys, they're still saying up $1,000 from a week ago.
Travis, could I interject for a second?
Interject, man.
I'm sorry. So did you, by any chance, add up all of the up abouts? Because they said up 500 up 1,000 up 1,000. But where we're at right now, 38,975. And then what was that August 4th number?
Boom, right there. 750 to
389, 750, 389, 975. So it's really only
225.
225.
But that's not true, Jack.
They've reported
they're
like
going
$2,000.
to revise this downward, bro. They're going to revise that downward. It's not up $250 from August 4th because they will revise this downward. How do I know that? They've done it the last 4 weeks. They keep revising the median sales price so they can keep saying up from a week ago. And to ask, okay, how many times, Jack? Here's one right here. Okay. Here's two. That's $2,000. Okay. Up slightly. So what do we want to say? Like, $300. So that's $2,300. But 389, 750. Again, all I'm trying to do here, okay, I'm just trying to say, don't listen to any one set of people or opinion or data because, there's financial bias here. Whether they mean to do it or not, I don't know. I don't want to judge them. I believe that they're doing this on purpose to push the narrative, but all I want to do now is just explain to the viewers how they're doing this. They keep slushing around $1,000 so they can keep saying each and every week, up slightly from last week.
That's
up $1,000,
Travis.
Up $1,000
on that. Trav, give me one second.
Let's do it.
They have reported 10 times as much price gains as actually happened. That the way they're that's huge there, right? 1,000, 1,500 when really prices only went up by 225. All right. So they have 10x the movement in price with their language here. And again, this is Redfin, cui bono, who benefits? Well, Redfin benefits from this because Redfin is a real estate company. So it's just I found that interesting, the way the problem keeps getting bigger cumulative. I'm sorry to interrupt, Travis, but
I can go on. I mean, this is Jack. This is just one. I could go on. I don't want to rant too much because I feel like my soul is leaving my body because I'm sick right now. So like each and every outburst of me, it's like an energy drain. But I can go on and on about other manipulations that they're doing. I mean, the new home data, the trajectories of the graphs. I mean, this is one big fraud and manipulation. I think this whole thing is corrupt. In fact, I hate going over this data, but I'm doing it because a lot of people are tracking this, and so I'll go over it. But regardless, just so you guys know, right, they're showing 10 times the amount than Jack just pointed out. But let's go over the market update now. Okay, so this came out August 29th. I didn't even do this on my Real Estate Mindset channel. I don't have the heart, Melody. I can't do it. I mean, if you once I know you're lying to me, once I know the data is corrupt, I don't even want to look at it anymore. Because I already know, right? You've already lost the trust that I had for you. And it's actually depressing. But let's look at the fear of missing out statement right here. This is from a realtor at Redfin. This is what they're saying in their most recent housing market update. I expect more I expect more buyers and sellers to jump into the market in a few months. Okay, so let's do this in our head, guys. So a few months from now, that would be November. Now what? November, December, the worst time of the year to buy real estate. So this person is saying that in the worst time seasonally for real estate, that's when they expect buyers to come back to the market. Why? But let's keep reading this. I apologize, guys. Once everyone has a better understanding of the new NAR rules. So you guys get this? So they're saying that once people start understanding how commission works for agents, then they're going to come back off the sidelines. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? What? Anyways,
talk to a
Gen Z, guys.
Talk to a millennial. Talk to a Gen Z. Why aren't you buy a house right now? And how many of them are going to tell you it's because of the NAR rules? Give me a break. Prices.
Right. Hardly anybody even knows. And then you look at that University of Michigan sentiment survey. I mean, this is the lowest in the series in terms of sentiment around the housing market. It's insane.
It's freaking insane, and I'm trying to be balanced and level-headed. I don't want to be too, charismatic. I want to just give the people the data, but geez Louise, what the hell, man? And like, anyways, here's the daily average right here. Okay. So 6.37%, that's down from 7.29%. Again, you guys, almost 100 basis point downward, which is around about a 10% increase in purchasing power. So you have a roundabout 10% increase in purchasing power. Meanwhile, demand has gone down since peak. All right. That means, again, unaffordability is finally starting to make its way through the minds of Americans, right? Hopefully we start seeing the speculators sell. But you guys can see, even though the rates are down, mortgage purchase applications down 9%. They removed some data here. It is what it is. Homes for searches online for sale down 3%. Now take a look at this. This is interesting. Oh, see this BS again, Jack? That's for you, buddy. Okay, up $1,000 from a week ago. You guys want to see a week ago? Okay, a week ago, here it is right here. So it's actually down from a week ago, guys. Just so I want to point that out real quick. We didn't really go over that. So last week it was $390. Okay, this week it's $389,975, $25 lower. Are they copy and pasting here, Jack? Or do they know how to
might
do
want
math
to check your
there?
math there, Redfin. Maybe run, measure twice, cut once. I just throw that out there.
I don't think they're even measuring. I think they're just cutting. Oh well. All right, let's go and look at the winners and losers of this week. On the left side, you guys, is the winners as far as equity appreciation year over year. Okay, so this is year over year. Philadelphia is leading now. It's very interesting to see that up there. It's a new metro at 15% up. Milwaukee double digits, Anaheim double digits, Nashua 9.7, Providence 8.5. Now to the right here, this is the metros with the biggest year over year price declines. Now you guys are going to see this list increase as we make our way, and this is my opinion. But more than likely, we're going to see this list of declining metro areas increase as we make our way through normal seasonal decline. Okay, so we have like every year, there's like seasonality, but there's also other factors involved in real estate, not just seasonality, like the Fed, affordability, how is the households doing, sentiment, all of those things. So you're going to see that go up. You're going to see this list get bigger. Now, the question is what's going to get worse, Melody? Is it going to be Texas? Is it going to be Florida? Or someone else is in the mix. Who else is in the mix, Melody? What other state? You tell me.
California is in the mix.
That's right.
Guys.
That is right.
Finally in the mix. Yep.
California
Yes.
is in the mix. That's right. Thank God you said the right state. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, okay. I love how you
But
test
of
me
course.
like that. Yeah. Okay.
I do. I test you. But you guys, number one year over year decline is Austin. And remember, Austin's down year over year over year over year. Right. Austin has been bleeding for arguably 2.5 years, but that's just Austin. Obviously, there's many metro areas. And I also want to point out, guys, even in Austin, even though I'm saying Austin's down year over year over year, and this is showing it's leading in decline, you still want to pay attention to subdivisions. You still want to pay attention to comps, because I can guarantee you there are subdivisions in Austin that are flourishing. And then there are subdivisions in Austin that are abandoning the subdivisions, like Melody and I found. So it's a mix, in other words. Let's keep going. New listings, San Diego's leading. I wouldn't look to that too much personally, Melody, and you tell me if I'm wrong here. The reason is because they're coming off a historic low. So even though it's like 15%, it's still relatively low. Would you agree with that, Melody?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to keep going. So here's median sales, you guys. And look at Jack. Look at the trajectory here. Okay. Look at the trajectory here. That is a 25. You see what I'm saying about the trajectory? I'm going to zoom in here. Now, they change this once it goes to the data center and after they manipulate it. But when they report their data on these weekly housing market updates, you can tell that the trajectory is manipulated on these charts. This upward represents $25. How can $25 make that type of trajectory? How's that possible? It's not possible.
Apparently, there's been some deflation. I don't know.
It's the way. I'm not going to rant on this. I'm going to keep going. But median sales
price. It's a chart crime. It's a chart crime for sure.
It's just the corruption just gets to me sometimes.
Should we do it, Travis? Should we? Personal foul, chart crime, Redfin, 15-yard penalty. Repeat third down.
Love it.
We need to kick him out of the league, Jack. Regardless, though, according to the data, okay, it's up on a national average 3.6%. But I want to encourage each and every person that is interested in purchasing a house or just wants to know what's going on in their own local housing market. If you can access the MLS, do your comparable reviews in your subdivision and find out for yourself. And that way you can access raw data and you don't have to lean on companies like this that has clear financial bias and indexes and algorithms that push that narrative. Now, median asking price is still up 5.5% year over year. Now, look at this gap right here, Melody. Traditionally, you guys can see, in 2022 and in 2023, that kind of went down at the same trajectory. Not necessarily a good comparison, but what I wanted to point out is when normally median asking price goes down this time of year, but it's been fairly stable. You guys can see that right there. Now, I believe, and tell me what you think, Melody. I think that's because, again, the higher end of the median, the $1 million houses are selling, whereas that lower end of the median is not.
It's clear as day in the NAR results. You can go to National Association of Realtors existing home sales, and they have a whole bunch of supplemental schedules. I highly encourage everyone to do that. And you can look at, what's sold and what prices and what's selling. The only increases are in those upper echelons, a million plus, over 750, but you've now started to see those slow as well. But until this is why median price right now, to me, is kind of throwing off false flags. What you and I have talked about, Travis, and what I've started to look at more is that median listing price.
Yeah.
And that comes from Fred, but they get their data from realtor.com. Because to me, if that is not going up or reaching prior peaks, then that is more indicative of what's happening in the housing market right now, because it's what people think they can get when they list their home. Now, we know they're not even getting that. So I think the median home price right now, everybody that's talking about it, they're different methodologies. It's very misleading. So you have to be careful.
And actually, we can prove that by, let's go to the top metro areas right here. I mean, Anaheim has the highest median of all the metros, right? So these are some of the more expensive metro areas that have the price growth. So you would assume, okay, prices are going up in Anaheim by 10%. That has the highest median. Therefore, it's going to impact median the most, right? But also, I don't want people to think that we're not acknowledging that there are still some tight markets, especially out east.
Yes.
Some of the markets out north, it is still tight. And I know that breeds confusion. So I want to stay as neutral as possible, but I do want to also constantly tell you guys, you got to go hyper local, and that's usually subdivision unless it's a rural property. Take a look at payments. We finally have payments under 2023. And what happened to demand again, guys? Right? Get it? So we now have payments under, it's still high. I'm not saying it's not skyrocketed. Okay. It's still high, but we're under 2023. We're well above 2021. Now remember, when this updates next year, 2021 is going to be gone. So people are going to forget where we came from next year because this only goes back 4 years. But nevertheless, it's saying the average mortgage payment is $2,568. Again, look at the gap from 2021 to here. I mean, mortgage payments were about $1,600. They're $1,000 higher. That's crazy, guys. And again, I don't think this number is counting taxes and insurance, at least not accurately.
That goes
Here's
to show
the thing that
inflation numbers, Travis. Like, can you go back to that? Was such a good point.
Yeah.
Can you scroll back up a little bit? Look at the median payment. What was it in 2021 there?
In 2021 is about $1,600.
$1,600 versus
about $2,568.
So they've gone up by about 60% in 4 years. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the worst the inflation ever got was 9%. And that was like a 1 month snapshot. And we're talking the biggest line item in the average person's budget here, your house payment. Yes. And it's gone up 60%. I mean, again, those inflation numbers, just total horse manure. The data is clearly flawed. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think it's important to talk about this. And I think it's important to understand why we make the points, especially Melody and I, with income. Right? We wouldn't be talking about income if you didn't need income to make a mortgage payment, but because you need income to make a mortgage payment for 30 years, right? And property taxes and homeowners insurance and maintenance and HOAs, and we'll get to the condos here in a second, but home buying, payments have gone down, but they are still super duper high. This caught a lot of people by surprise. Again, everyone's like, you got to buy right now. If you don't buy right now, 2 years from now, house is going to be so much more unaffordable. And, to those people that say that, well, then you go buy right now. Then you guys go buy right now. I'm sick of hearing it. You know what I mean? Then you guys go buy a house if it's still affordable. And if you buy right now, it's guaranteed to go up in the future. Then why don't you just keep buying houses? Why don't you just keep buying houses? But regardless, pending sales are down. This is a 4-year low. It's probably a historic low, actually, going back to the 80s. But when you count population growth, this has got to be historic low. I don't know exactly if it is, but again, when we're counting that population growth, it's super low. So pending sales are down, demand is down. People are figuring out it's the price. The price is what matters. We got a real problem in America, especially with the inflation, guys. Now, new listings for home, this is not good. Okay, this is not good. It is up year over year by 3%, but it's not at the levels that we're wanting to see. All right, which represents a few things. I think the biggest thing that this represents is even the people that own houses right now, a lot of them cannot sell. All right. Now that obviously is changing as they're refinancing, cash out refinancing, property taxes, HOA assessments, especially in Florida, it's changing. But my point is, this is actually super low. We haven't seen the increase from the golden handcuff effect yet. I don't believe, again, we don't know 100% because we don't know why these people are selling. According to Zillow, 80% of the active listings are due to some type of economic event or some type of significant event in people's lives, which to me is at the bare minimum motivated selling. So most of it is motivated selling, in my opinion. It's not people moving up and things like that. Did you want to add anything,
Travis? Yeah, just add as well though. What does Redfin not have a lot of? What do they not have a lot of on their platform?
New homes.
That's right. Do you like when I do it to you? Did you like that?
Huh? I was nervous.
See?
Yeah. I was like, I hope I get this one right.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, they don't have new homes, guys. And according to official numbers, which I don't believe based on everything I've seen out there, that Travis and I have seen out there, they say they have 7.5 months of supply right now. You go to San Antonio, Austin, I mean, it is far greater than that. And those aren't listed on these sites. And that is so important, guys, when you're talking about inventory.
I will say though, Melody, at least on that census data, they say on the data that we only got 76% of this. There's another 24%. We're going to blind you.
Oh,
we're going to warn you guys that this data is financially biased. At least they say that on the census. They don't say that on Redfin. But you know what? It's crazy. People still don't care.
I think that's a really, sorry, can we, I think that's a really good point. And I think that, you know, what we've seen is kind of the degradation of these data gatherers. And, you know, as much as we give a hard time to some of these sites that, you know, at the Fed, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and things like that, at least you can find most of the methodology. They will tell you how they put it together, and it can be flawed. And you can see that. But these data providers like Altos, Redfin, now Parcel, like all of them, none of them will tell you. In fact, you'll ask them directly, how are you getting your data? And they will not tell you. I have asked them all, guys. I have. And so that in and of itself should be very, you know, suspicious. And so I think that's a great point, Travis.
And, you know, again, it's just like they've already lied. We've proven they have lied. We've proven that they manipulate us. Why do we keep looking at this crap? You know what I mean? Like it drives me crazy, Melody, but whatever. So here's active listings right here. We're now under 1 million according to this data, sitting at 990,630. We're still above where we're at year over year by 16.7%. But look at how dangerously close we are to 2022 levels. So this is not the trajectory that we want to see for active listings. We want to see this trajectory go up. So again, it's very interesting that we still
wait till October.
And then we have the golden
and that's when the Florida season starts. And I promise you, we will start to see this. But this is seasonal. A lot of this. So I think to your point, it's not one thing, right? It's one, they don't have the new homes. Two, this is seasonal. This is when inventory goes down. I've done the seasonal arc. You know, it always goes down, always, because people are in school. They can't. But I also think there, and you can look in this local markets, and in my recent YouTube video, I go into all these local markets specifically, and there is a combination of seasonality and motivated selling. And so, you know, and also frustration in Austin, people pulling those listings because they know, I mean, they have no hope at this point that they can sell.
I mean, and a lot of other people, Melody, they're like, what do we do? Right? Like I've had someone reach out that from their property tax investigation. She's a single mother. She purchased, I believe, in 2021, low interest rate. She has plenty of equity, but property taxes have exploded. She's got to get a second job, and you know, she's emailing. She's asking, should I sell my house? And that's such a hard thing for me to answer, because on one hand, you could walk away with 6 figures, but on the other hand, you know, she already has an asset that has a 30%, 40% equity, so she can take a hit. You got a 3% interest rate. So, and then if you rent, you may pay a little bit more, you may pay less. Yeah, it's just it's a hard decision for me personally to tell someone to sell their house when they purchased like 2019, right? personally believe in that we as citizens should sell our houses, which is why it's so important to buy our houses right. To buy our houses with fundamentals, with wedge, good interest rates, something we can afford. If you want something that generates income, then look for that. But don't buy into the emotional aspect of purchasing real estate. Don't think that in order for you to be a good person or the man of the house or whatever, or to start your family, you don't need a house. And in fact, you buy a house right now, all you are, for the most part, most people, a glorified renter. You're just a glorified renter. You don't really own the house. Even if you paid your mortgage off, you still have property taxes. If you stop paying your property taxes, what happens to the house? It gets taken away. Someone takes the house from you. You don't really own it. It's really sad, actually. But anyways, let's keep going on. Here's months of supply right here. We're at 3.6 months of supply available on the market. That's a 4-year high for this time of year. So we're doing good for supply. This measures the inventory unit amount plus demand. Again, 2019, 2017, we're at 3.7 months. So the thing is it's not entirely necessarily a good way to compare 2017 3.7 to right now 3.6 because they have crushed demand. My point is in 2017 we had more demand. So you see what I'm saying right there, Melody? You know what I mean? So it's just a different situation right now. People are getting hurt differently. And then
they're also transacting outside of these MLS in the private node space. And so, I think that we might find in a couple of years, because that's how long it's going to take for all the noise to clear through, is that a lot of the reduction in inventory and even in sales, because we are lower than 2008 in the season and 7, is that actually people started transacting outside of these systems. And so, that's another reason that inventory is looking lower than historically. There's plenty. Like here in Johnson City, it's not at 2019 levels, but everywhere you go, there's a home for sale. There's Foosbos, there's new homes. There's like on my road. And so I don't care if this listing site doesn't have it, right? Like,
well, I'll show you right now. I'll show you right now what you just said. They're not listing these properties. I'll go on the MLS right now. Okay. And I'll show you. Okay, where's the agent? Boom, 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 boom. I'll show you right now that they are not reporting these transactions with new homes. Maybe I should do this on like a different segment, but let me just show you real quick. Let's go to the map. I'm going to go to Harrington Trails. Okay, take a look at this. All right, Harrington Trails. Let's look at the map. See how I just categorized that right there to the subdivision? You see how you could do that, guys? You don't want to like throw up data. You want to fine tune your data. You want to zoom in, right? You want to zoom into the data. So I've zoomed in. This is the subdivision I went to where there was like 5 times more inventory than what they're reporting, Melody. But what I want to show here is let's look at the existing sales. Okay. Let me look at the results real quick. All right. Let me categorize this year built. All right. 2020. So let's see if they reported this transaction. So these people are trying to sell. This was built in 2020. And let me see if they reported the sell. So we've got a property archive. Maybe they did. Right here. Okay, so they did. Okay, this is the one that they did. I actually showed you guys this in the last video. Okay, so that's one. And I think that's actually one of the only ones, to be honest with you. Okay, let's go to the next listing real quick. Here's another listing right here. Let's see if they reported this. See, nothing. But what I want to do actually, let me go to year built. And I'll show you guys. Yeah, that was a year built. Let me go to the third one. So they didn't report the second one. Here's the third one. No report. You see that? This is built in 2021. This property was sold before and it's not listed on MLS. This is proof. They're not listing this. They're coming out selling it at 300,000. April 30th to 2024. You guys see 2024 right there. And again, let me see. This was your build of, I think it was 2020. You see that? See that right there? So these new home builders I'm telling you guys, they are not reporting the sales transactions. They're only reporting a certain amount of it. I don't know how much they're leaving out, but they're leaving out a lot. I'll tell you that. Regardless, pending sales are down, you guys. But that was to your point, Melody. Now, as far as home sold,
Trav, can you scroll down just for a second? Someone wanted to see the x-axis on that previous graph. I'm sorry. Scroll up. But yep. Okay. What? Sorry. No. Just show the x-axis, the bottom legend. Scroll a little bit more. There you go. Okay.
Good.
Yep, you're good now.
Yeah, so most of these charts, guys, are January to December, and then the different colors are different years, just for context, so you know what you're looking at. You're looking at the annual progression over the last 4 or 5 years on all of these charts.
Thank you, guys. I'm sorry I didn't point that out. Days on market, 35 days on market, that has been going up. That's a 4-year high for that time, for this time of year. 29% of homes sold above final list price. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't want to confuse people. That's why you got to go hyper local. You have to understand we're talking about broad information, macro data. There are still some markets that are tight. There are still some markets that homes are being purchased above list price. That's still shockingly going on in the US. And I really am worried about those people that are driving those prices up. I mean, my gosh. But anyways, 6.8% as far as listings that had price cuts. That's a near new record. You guys can see that's the highest it's been, but they keep revising this down. It said 7.1 earlier. It is what it is. It's the highest it's ever been. Price cuts are skyrocketing, you guys. Let me just go to the end here. And then here's Redfin home buying demand. They took this off of the beginning part of the report, probably because it looks super bad. I mean, look at the trajectory, you guys, of demand. Look at the trajectory of demand. Meanwhile, interest rates went down. Demand is down according to their own index, according to their own proprietary algorithm. It is down 12% year over year. But remember, demand down 12% year over year, interest rates down almost 100 basis points year over year. So, do you guys see? You got 10% more purchasing power, roughly. Let's just say 9%. You have 9% more purchasing power, but demand is 12% lower. Do y'all see what's going on there? So that's why I'm saying I believe we're going to have a situation. It will spiral out of control where rates and price go down at the same time. Right now, we don't see that on a national average with this data. We don't see it because they keep manipulating the median. Anyways, that is going to conclude my housing market update. I was a little long, so I apologize, but that's it. Appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you,
Any
Travis.
questions?
I have a question for you, Trav.
Sure.
There's two different ways a listing could go away, right? You showed that decline in active listings.
Okay.
It's not sales, right? Because we've seen the existing home sales continues to decline. Could it be people just giving up on selling their house and pulling their listing off? Could that be explained?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, yeah, it's expired. That's called expired. So it'll come off if it's sold or if the listing's expired, and sometimes they'll play tricks, Jack. They'll expire the listing and then relist it to start the days on the market over again. So it looks like it's newly listed, but that's why you go into the property archive just to see what tricks they play so that you understand the mindset. But yeah, people are giving up, man. I mean, because they're not selling their house. I'll go in Kingwood, my area. I can access MLS right now. The house are sitting. And meanwhile, guess what's going up, Jack? This is in Texas. Keep in mind, this is like round zero. Property tax skyrocketing. I find you want me to show you multiple houses that they're up for sale. They've been up for sale in the market for 100 days, and they're assessed for $100,000 more in assessed value. You want me to show you that?
Yeah, I believe you. And besides the property taxes, I saw some people pointed out in the comments also insurance, right? California's
Yes,
35% insurance hikes.
And I think Travis is going to get into this when he does the condo story, but what is happening in Florida right now is about to cause an incredible crisis. And Travis, I'm going to win, just FYI.
You know what, Melody? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that because remember, there's going to be a bailout. I don't want there to be, but there is going to be. And honestly, Melody, I think that they're going to have to bail out the insurance companies.
Well, that's a lot of why they're doing this, the depopulation, Travis, that Julius told us about, and I know you're going to cover, is because so many people in Florida have to use the insurer of last resort, which is Citizens. And they got a letter from the White House, and not the White House, his name is White House, but from the U.S. government saying, you guys, we're worried about the solvency of Citizens. We think if there's another hurricane, you're going to need a bailout. And so what did they do? They went around and actually Julius can tell you all about this, but they went around doing these little inspections of everybody to essentially move them off of Citizens. And that was their response. And so our federal government said, we're not going to come bail you out, Citizens. You need to get it together. And so I agree with you. There's going to be all kinds of, intervention. But I think what's so shocking, and I think you'll get into this, is that, the Florida is not moving to help with this condo issue. And they are taking actions that are not supporting the citizens of Florida.
I want to, you know what? I'll get into it. I don't want to, I'll get into it. I want
Ruin
to
your
go into
story.
it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. You're right, though. You're right.
And
Damn
it always
citizens.
starts with Florida, guys. You can go back to the Great Depression. In fact, Bubble in the Sun argues that the entire Great Depression was caused by the land grab in Florida. Then you can read Swamp Peddlers. I mean, and it's a compelling case, Jack. I mean, I've done a lot of reading around the Great Depression.
Disney and his shell companies buying up the swampland around
Oh
Orlando.
yeah, the Swamp
Yeah.
Peddlers. I mean, this is, they were selling hopium back then as well. Like, sure, buy your swamp for thousands of dollars, and people would arrive and be like, "What? I can't even build on this. What is?" And they would buy it for retirement, for passive income. Guys, does that sound familiar? I mean, this is. They're saying, a lot of people are saying it in the comments, like, we are not as humans all that bright. We just keep repeating the same behaviors over and over again. There is no angel of progress where we as humans get smarter.
You want me to start talking about the apocrypha, right? I mean, apocrypha. Is that what you want me to start talking?
No.
Don't let me down that rabbit hole.
Right, Brazil. Are we ready?
Very much so.
Okay. All right, guys. So again, I'm going to be doing a deep background story on Brazil, because I think that this story that Jack talked about at the beginning is probably, as everything is nuanced, and there is a lot going on. And you may have heard over your life about the great game, and that is the game over natural resources. And something I used to study was the IMF, its loans, the way it would really take these countries that were rich in natural resources and make them debt slaves, and come in and do all kinds of horrible things. So it's very important to actually understand the way that the big game works, and that little club that none of us are a part of, and that has to do a lot with natural resources. So what I want to do firstly is just a little wiki history of Brazil, and talk about its exports, talk about its global importance, because I totally believe we're globally synchronized. That's a term that I learned on Eurodollar University. And that, in essence, all of what's happening in all of these countries is so important to what's happening here in the US and what's impacting the housing market, believe it or not. And that's, what we're trying to kind of show you is all of these different relationships. So very quickly, Brazil is very important globally. Largest country could be a company in South America and Latin America. Fifth largest country by area, and seventh most populous. Essentially, the biggest thing that I want everyone, it's very diverse, kind of biodiverse, and it's very resource rich. And so this is from Wikipedia. I bolded it for emphasis, but the country's natural richness is also the subject of significant global interest, as environmental degradation through processes such as deforestation has direct impacts on global issues such as climate change and biodiversity loss. Guys, and just FYI, the last time we talked about that CC phrase, we got a note on our channel, even though we said we weren't going to talk about the CC. So hopefully everybody knows what I'm referring to. But you can see here very political motivations. It's not, and I can guarantee you, as we talk a little bit more about Brazil, you'll see what resources they have. And you'll see that likely that deforestation thing is just a cover. And I can't remember. Oh my gosh, Jack, do you remember who the guy was who read the riot act to the reporter in Britain over their carbon emissions? Maybe one of the two of you could actually look that up. So basically, it was some person. Actually, it was in Africa. He was in Africa. I can't remember which African, but he kind of took to task the British media talking about their big crimes, environmental crimes. And it was very, very interesting. But so these guys, Brazil is interesting. When I looked on the IMF website, I could see their last loan to Brazil was in 2007. That's kind of interesting. If anybody has more data on them, please post some comments, things like that, because I think I'm just getting into this story. But they are an area of great concern in the great game, and we'll find out here why. One of the things is it's one of the largest producers of various agricultural commodities. It provides 50% of the food in the country. I mean, they're doing much better in terms of some countries who can't grow any of their food, for instance. But it's the largest producer of sugarcane, soy, coffee, and orange. Okay, so something else I studied when I was studying the IMF, I was studying post-colonial nations because they're very much hand in hand with the IMF. And post-colonial nation is a nation that was once colonized by someone like Spain, Britain, etc. And I had a professor once that said, if it wasn't for discovering sugar, the British would never have been able to colonize most of the world. It gave them the energy, like those energy drinks that Travis actually drinks. So, so these resources are very important, and they're the top producer of coffee. Anybody know what's going on with coffee prices right now?
We've had some dry weather in key parts of the world. And man, they've just gone vertical, the price of coffee. And, I saw somebody in the Macro Edge group said the other day that someone posted a chart of the coffee prices, and the first comment was "Civil War imminent." Like, if you mess with coffee supply, people would just start killing each other.
So what my professor said about the sugar was about also the coffee and the tea. And we are a coffee consumption country. I mean, we consume a ton of coffee. And look here, I've posted a chart here of coffee prices. They've gone up. So when something like this happens, it becomes political as well. And so there's a lot going on. And so they have a lot of they produce a lot of corn, cotton, lemon, tobacco, all kinds of things. Very, very resource rich. Okay. Livestock, they do a lot of production of meat, beef, pork, chicken, etc. But here's where things start to get interesting, right? So Brazil is the world's 24th largest exporter and 26th largest importer as of 2021. China is its largest trading partner, accounting for 32% of the total trade. Okay, so their alliance from a trade perspective rests with China, right? So just important. I'm not weaving a huge conspiracy theory today, but what I'm trying to show you is just the importance of Brazil. So let's get to the story. Musk's ex suspended in Brazil after disinformation row. This is from BBC.com. And honestly, all of the what I would say left-wing media has the same talking points around this story. And what's interesting is I'm not finding as much in the right-wing media about it, but we'll just talk about what we know. I think we'll be talking about this story more in the future. But just as Jack said, basically X has been banned in Brazil after failing to meet a deadline set by the Supreme Court judge to name a new legal representative in the country. And so this judge has really, someone in the comments talked about that he has a history of making these really crazy decisions, but he's going after it, no doubt. But I also want to keep in mind too, and even putting aside your politics, that a lot of these resource-rich countries feel very taken advantage by the global West. And remember, I can remember so clearly back during our election when all of the social media platforms kind of shut down, January 6th, things like that were shutting down Trump on social media, and I took I said to myself, like, I won't, I'm very apolitical, I lean libertarian like Jack, but I said to myself, like, that scares the heck out of me. And I mean, I didn't want to listen to the man anymore. But when you do so, and it was so interesting to me when I talked to millennials and Gen Zers about it and their difference in opinion. And I was just like, you don't want anyone coming and doing that. I mean, free speech is, in my opinion, the bedrock sort of the key tenet of this country, and
it's
we
the
have
bad
to
stuff.
respect it.
And it's
I'm
the bad
sorry.
stuff, Melody. It's like the bad stuff. Someone made this comment. It's like, we don't need the free speech for the things that people agree with us on. The free speech is for all of the bad stuff or the disagreements and the stuff that keeps us sharp. We don't want the racism and any of that type of crazy stuff. But I mean, it's the bad stuff that needs to be protected. The disagreements is what needs to be protected. Would you
Amen,
agree?
Travis. Amen. All right.
Yeah. And I think too, so what's interesting, we often have these loomies, as I call them, performing certain things out there. Right now, I'm actually reading a very interesting book about kind of the evolution of free speech and how it got into the Constitution, different things like that. And it's very interesting history. Not everybody was on board back then, guys. Hardly anyone was on board when they wrote the Constitution. So, but you can see here what Musk said, and we'll talk about this. Free speech is the bedrock, just like I said, of democracy, and an unelected pseudo judge in Brazil is destroying it for political purposes. Well, the judges, anyway, I'm not going to go down that. Okay. So basically what he's saying is that they asked X to shut down some of these right-wing accounts that they claimed were spouting disinformation. I don't have the facts. I have no idea how much, what is true, what isn't true. But essentially, they said as well, you have to have a representative in the country. As Jack said, the former representative quit and then was bullied, and it wasn't good stuff. But the judge said, you have to pay these fines, and they're going to start accruing. And they also froze the accounts of Starlink, saying, well, you didn't have enough in your X account, so we're gonna freeze your Starlink account as well. And obviously that's no good. It was no good when we decided to freeze all those Russian assets either. And so this is the other side of that coin. And this isn't the first time Musk has gotten into a similar war. He was also fighting with the UK Prime Minister. And so essentially, though, he's not this judge, however crazy people may think he is, he's also focused on on other companies. This isn't where this is, but I'll scroll down here. He's also, I'll try and find it. Oh yeah, here it is. He basically, Telegram was temporarily banned over its failure to cooperate with Request to block certain profiles. Meta's messaging service WhatsApp also faced temporary bans in 2015 and 2016 for refusing to comply with police requests for user data. So he's not just picking on X along. Okay. I think that the next interesting story comes from Time, and they say absolutely almost nothing new. But the title, I was so excited. I knew better because it was Time, but I was like, oh, what's the real reason Brazil is blocking Elon Musk's X Twitter? The story didn't give me any more new information, but kind of showed some of the other things you were talking about these fines, Jack, that are very burdensome for folks that don't make that kind of money. And so, this is going to be a very, people aren't going to want to mess around with this, but this story didn't tell me much more. And so pretty much what you're seeing out in the press right now, which is making me wonder what else is going on, are the same exact talking points across all of media outlets. And I think this is what's really, really actually funny. We'll talk about Musk in just a second, is essentially what did Musk do when the NPR did a story on Brazil and what this judge was doing? They flagged the article recently about Trump. I'm sorry, this was a story about Trump, not Brazil, but they flagged the article critical of Donald Trump, and it essentially broke the link to NPR. You couldn't get to the link, and so Trusk is a Trusk. Oh, that's a new one. We might need to use that one. Trusk. That's Musk and Trump. Trusk. Musk.
You're muted, Jack.
Oh,
Sorry, I was saying Mump and Trusk. Yes.
right.
That's,
So, essentially, on the one hand, Musk is saying that free speech is the bedrock of our democracy. On the other hand, they are playing tricks by, breaking the link on this story, saying it's suspicious activity. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I have been shadow banned on X Twitter several times. And people have told me they can't find me. And I'm talking about housing, guys. I'm not even talking about, I never get political on X Twitter. And so, and recently, I tweeted a story about Austin, and actually, I mean, it just got it. It was. I included a link, but even sometimes when I include a link, it actually did way better than the story. So there is definitely censorship. I remember one of my videos I did with Adam Taggart got labeled as I forget if it was suspicious or something, like a warning. Like, I can't remember what it was, but it was every housing bear got the same label, but it was like illicit. Oh, I remember, it was illicit content. And we didn't curse, we didn't do anything, and every housing bear was getting that same message. And so these things are happening. Whether Musk is out there saying that he's all for free speech, we know that his actions are quite different. And so, these folks, these loomies, they know how to use this language. And that's really what I want to kind of emphasize here, as well as I don't think we have the whole story yet. And I think that because you're seeing such a such the same talking points across the media outlets, tells me I think that there's going to be something more here. But that's really it for my Brazil story. Anything? Questions, guys?
Thank you. Jack, you want to start?
I would chime in, and I would totally echo Melody's point about Elon not being an angel. Elon is out for Elon. I think it's very important to keep that in mind. He was the choir boy of the left when he was making electric vehicles and dealing in carbon credits and Solar City, right? And then he got into free speech, and now he is the choir boy of the right. He goes where the winds take him, whatever's in his best interests. And I would also point out that I have been on the receiving end of Mr. Musk's ire in the past, because Elon has a lot of investments in artificial intelligence. Tesla and X and Grok are buying all of these NVIDIA GPUs. And a lot of my videos about CoreWeave and about NVIDIA have been mysteriously unavailable. Those videos got several million views combined, and then all of a sudden one day on Twitter, they don't work. And as it happens, Elon has a lot of investments in artificial intelligence that may have been harmed by those videos if they were allowed to spread. So I've been on the receiving end of this. Censorship is the crutch of intellectual cowards. Good ideas don't need censorship to defend them. Bad ideas don't need to be censored. They censor themselves. So I am adamantly opposed to it. And especially when the government gets into it. All right. The case could be made. There's gray areas, right? If it's your channel, if it's your platform, you have a right to decide what's talked about on it. When the government tries to tell you what can and can't be discussed, that is a hard no from me. Absolutely.
And I didn't forget one of the most important things, the metals they have, and I wish, I know metal experts, and I know that there's a larger story here, but they have nickel, they have gold. And what do we need nickel for? We need nickel for EVs, guys. And so that, that's why they care about that deforestation, not because, they care about getting these resources to get in on the latest global grift. And this is what that is. These EVs that almost no one, hardly anyone now seems to want to buy. So you've seen these massive lots in Europe at these ports of just EVs for days everywhere, because there's such a glut of supply. But if we are going to meet those goals, we need these metals. And that really is the new great game is, getting these metals. It used to be oil. Now it's the metals, and Brazil plays a huge part in that as well.
I think that was good also, Melody. Like what you were saying hit me as well. I think we all need to think about this, that are content creators and influencers, right? It's when you think about what Musk is doing, being a freedom fighter for freedom of speech. If you're going to preach about how important freedom of speech is, then your actions have to match what you're preaching, or you're corrupt. So it's extremely disappointing to see that. I mean, I get it, and as content creators, we also have to be careful with that. When I first started doing content creation, there were times where I blocked a few people because I was like, this is my platform, and they're just, naysayers. And I'd wake up at like 4 a.m. I get a notification on my phone and it's someone calling me an evil person. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to deal with that. So I blocked them. But I stopped doing that once I really started understanding how bad censorship is. And now I look at like the comment section, especially on our videos. It's like, that's a user section, right? Like don't block. So I try not to even touch it. I don't want to block anything. But it took me a minute to understand what was actually going on. And actually we had to kind of evolve, I think, as content creators, because I didn't go to college for this, but
I've never blocked anyone on X. I've never
blocked me.
No, I did not. I've never blocked a single person on X. Never.
I just kidding.
So that's on purpose. And I choose when they're truly trolling and it, and you've tried time and time again to engage, I might mute them, but I don't block. And often I'll go and look at the muted comments when it's not 4 a.m. in the morning, Travis. And when I can deal with that negativity coming my way, because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. I want alternative data. So I agree with you on that.
We got a, I'm looking at the comments. You guys are funny, but, just want to say thank you to Danny. They're late watching 2 times. Thank you for the support, Danny. I see you all the time supporting us. That means a lot.
Thank you.
The action means a lot. Thank you. Maverick, I saw your comments, Mav. I appreciate you. Mav was like, Travis, start talking about the housing market. Why are you talking about the economy? Mav, I appreciate you, brother. I made a class for you, man. And also, I haven't been putting out as much comment because I'm making another class for you, man. It's a free class about property taxes and how to fight it. I've really went down that rabbit hole. I hope it's going to be great. Also, no, not blocking. You would actually be surprised how many real estate agents actually listen to me from broker shops in Houston. You'll go in and like, Travis, we're doing your subdivision, each subdivision analysis. So it's not about blocking. It's about working together. You also have to be careful. To his point, I'll run out of time. Also though, you got to be careful with I got to be careful because Melody's here, with grifters and people that are only wanting to talk to push the narrative to like profit, right? Like I don't want to talk to grifters and people that are just shilling and that are, clearly frauds. So there's a happy balance as far as bringing people onto a channel to discuss things, right? The comment section, do whatever you want. I guess that means it's my turn for the next story, Melody. Is that right? I'm barely hanging on right now. Can you guys tell? I feel like my eyes are yellow right now. I feel like trash. All right, we're going to go into the condo.
You're doing great, Trav.
Collapse. Huh?
You're doing great.
You're doing terrific, buddy.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That was very nice of you to say. Do you mean it, though, or are you just saying that?
Is your sarcasm detector out of Cal?
Okay, fine. I'm just going to keep going.
I
Okay.
do mean it. You're doing great.
Thank you.
I think you're doing just fine, Trev.
Yes, I meant it. I wouldn't have said if I didn't mean it.
Oh, cheers. All right, guys, we're going to talk about what's going on in Florida with the condo crisis. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot of things about Florida, and really, this is affecting condos that are mostly condos that are 30 years or more and people that are on a fixed income. There's a massive catastrophe happening in Florida right now, and they're getting hit on multiple fronts. It's not just one thing. But I wanted to go back and I wanted to ask the question, how did this happen? Where did this start? Why is the condos in Florida seem to be having a meltdown faster than anywhere else in the country, right? Like, why is Florida having this meltdown and New York is behind Florida in this per se? Part of the reason is the condo collapse. So I just want to rewind space-time continuum. I'm going to read a little bit about the new laws that were passed in Florida that resulted in some of these massive financial struggles that homeowners are having. Now, again, remember the Surfside condo collapse. So in response to the Surfside condo collapse, Florida passed a new law in 2022 and another law in 2023 to increase building safety and maintenance standards. So far, so good, right? We want safety standards and we want maintenance standards, but I would argue that we needed that before they started collapsing. We needed that so we understood the liabilities we would have in it, with our insurance companies, and our HOAs could prepare. Right now, you're blindsiding us. You're passing a lot, but the thing is like you can't be mad at safety. You could be mad at the fraud, the corruption, the lies, the deceit. But look at safety, maintenance. It's messed up. Now we're seeing what's going on underneath the hood, right? Anyways, they passed Senate Bill 4D that requires condos and co-op buildings that are 3 stories or taller to undergo, and here it is, guys, here it is, structural integrity inspections when they turn 30 years old. My question is, why weren't they doing that to begin with? Why weren't they doing that to begin with? They're next to the ocean, saltwater, corrosion. Buildings near saltwater must be inspected when they turn 25 years old. So case in point right there. So 5 years earlier, if they're next to saltwater air. Inspections must be repeated. Here we go. I like this. Every 10 years after the initial inspection. Remember, you guys, I think around, it's down here. Okay, so 98 people died. So about 100 people died because a condo collapsed. So these laws aren't necessarily a bad thing. What's bad, though, is no one planned on how to maneuver financially to afford this. Now, Senate Bill 154 was also passed, which requires condo associations. This is insane. I'm going to show you this in a minute. Condo associations to fully fund reserves for repairs that are needed now or in the future. That means the reserves cannot be waived. Unless the state approves alternative funding methods. And then go into roof repairs, but let's keep going. Okay. So essentially, guys, this is what happened outside of like other condos in different states. All right. So they have this law that was passed. It's a safety hazard. They're right next to the ocean. Pretty much all the coastline in Florida is condos. Now, unfortunately, a lot of this is leading to, we're going to start with HOAs. I'm going to cover insurance. I'm going to cover taxes. I'm going to cover prices, but we're going to start with HOAs and not even the monthly, guys. I'm going to get to the monthly. I'm starting with these special assessments. Special assessments are not your monthly. You have to pay a monthly generally or a yearly, but generally it's a monthly HOA maintenance fee. A special assessment is in addition to that. It's because the HOA doesn't have enough money to pass these structural inspections, or they're having the condos inspected with a structural engineer, and they're coming back hot and they got to abandon the property. They got to condemn the property, guys. But anyways, here's one right now. It's going on in Ormond Beach. Condo owners hit, and this is multiple condo owners. Imagine if these people are on a fixed income, Social Security income. They're hit with $100,000 special assessment fee. Raise your hand if you're watching this and you have an extra $100,000. Do you guys want to own yet? Now, if you're renting, you don't have to pay that. If you're renting, you can walk away. If you own, you cannot walk away. You can sell your house. And this is just this area, you guys. There's multiple areas that are like 200,000, 300,000 in special assessments. And what's happening is they can't afford it, and they list their house. They find that the houses, no one can afford these houses, and they're lowering their prices. And it's spiraling right now. And let me keep going. Anything, you guys? Yeah, I thought I heard something from you, Melody.
Well, yeah. So also, I don't know if you'll bring this up. So sorry if you are, but the fact that some developers have a real strategy here, and that's that they go in. Are you going to bring that up or no?
No, keep going.
Okay, so how they kind of come in to buy out the whole condo, buy everybody out of it to kind of demo it and rebuild. And there have been instances where people are claiming that they've come in and actually destroyed the, done foundation damage, things like that, so that they could come in and take over that real estate because it's so valuable. So again, this is, the Surfside. I talked to a firefighter that was there. It was horrendous what they described. These people that were asleep in their homes and died. So it was definitely a tragedy that needed response. But to your point, they didn't think this through, and now the implications are just are crazy. But keep going, Travis. Thank you. This is great info.
Honestly, I mean, that's a really good point, and I call that predatory development, and we see that a lot. Well, I saw that a lot with manufactured home parks in Southern California. So you would have someone that purchased a manufactured home park, say in Southern California, and then they would raise the rent on those owners, because in most mobile home parks in California is chattel. You don't own the property under the manufactured home, so you're renting it. And so these developers come in and they double the rent, and a lot of it's fixed income, right? So they go from like 2,000 to 5,000 or 4,000 in rent, and they can get away with that. So they do that because they want everyone out. They want to demo it, and they want to build a new high rise. So that's going to happen, and it's very interesting because I didn't think of that point you made, but you're going to see that happen in these condos as well. It's bad. Okay, but that's just
Make a point real quick, Trev?
Yeah, go ahead.
On these special assessments, because you mentioned, you could just sell if you can't afford the assessment. That's not necessarily true, because they'll put a lien on your condo. That special assessment becomes a lien if you don't pay it, so you cannot sell out from under it. It comes with you, and they will foreclose on your property. I mean, the HOA will end up taking your property from you if you don't pay this. So there is no out for homeowners here. Pay or lose your house. That's what it comes down to.
That's a good point. In fact, actually, specifically FHA has a huge criteria when it comes to like condos and townhouses, and you have to do something called a condominium certification, where they actually ask those questions that you're mentioning. So I'm going to tell you, man, these banks aren't going to be stupid. These banks are going to look after themselves, and they're going to start realizing that there's risks here, and they're going to cut that financing off or make it to where it's going to be extremely difficult for people to purchase these without a large cash down payment or all cash.
We already know Fannie Mae has a no-go list. And so the agency the GSEs already have a no-go list, meaning if you're on that blacklist, they won't give it to anybody, by the way. They won't tell you who's on it. But if you're on that blacklist, you can't get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan.
Yeah, they're looking into condos, so they understand the risk. It is what it is. But that's just a special assessment, Jack. That's just your surprise $100,000 bill. We're now going to talk about HOA monthly fees, because it's not just that. The monthly fees in Florida, as far as your HOA, are absolutely skyrocketing, and you can see that here. I've taken the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 metro areas, and look at the year over change in the HOA. Again, not taxes, not insurance, not mortgage. This is not even included in your mortgage, even if you wanted it to. HOA is always paid separately. It's gone up 17.2% in one freaking year. In 1 year in Tampa. How does that go up? And that's not including the special assessments. That's 17.2% on average in Tampa. And look at the effect on price. We'll go over price in a minute, but prices are down year over year 4.9%. You guys think it has anything to do with the overwhelming unaffordability? Well, what if rates drop to 2%, 3%? Well, you still got massive 6-figure special assessments, don't you? Now, if you rent one of those, you can just walk away and go to the brand new one behind over there that doesn't have any of these issues. One of the benefits of renting versus owning one of these condos anyways. Now, Orlando's number 2 at a 16.7% increase in HOA dues. Fort Lauderdale, number 3 at 16.2. West Palm, I don't know if you guys have been to West Palm. I have never seen such a divided area as West Palm.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. There's one section in West Palm, straight poverty. It's just like, I'm asking, like, how could there be so much poverty when you just look up and it's like $1 million houses?
And Travis, look what Julius just said. Notice Orlando is not a coastal city. And this is the other thing that's happening in Florida right now with those floods in Sarasota is pretty soon here, flooding, they're going to require everyone to have flood insurance. And I mean, so that's the next hit. After this condo hit, there's going to be the flood insurance hit.
Good point. Good point. And then we have number 5, Jacksonville, 7.6. We have Miami at 5.7. I mean, again, you guys, we're just going over the HOA. So we have massive surprise assessment bills. We have massive increase in HOAs. Let's keep going. Okay. Now, this is insane. I haven't even talked about insurance yet. None of what I talked about was insurance. That's just your HOA association. When we look at what's called HOI, homeowners insurance, Florida's homeowners insurance rate is the highest in the U.S. and expected to climb higher, because even though Orlando's not on the coastal city, it's close enough to those coastal cities to where it's paying for their damages, because those costs spread to everyone eventually. So Florida's the highest, guys. Look at this. I don't know if you know this, Melody and Jack, but think about what I'm about to read you. Florida homeowners pay the most homeowners with an average annual for homeowners insurance $11,000 in 2023. 11,000. We're not even at property taxes. We're not even at mortgage. 11,000. My heart goes out to these people. What are they going to do? That's why I'm like, how do you fix this? The whole system's corrupt. It's broken. If there wasn't all this fraud, we wouldn't have these situations and we can thrive as American citizens. This entire system's broken. It's broken. And if they bail it out, then guess what? We got to pay for it. Inflation gets worse. What are they going to do? They got to go bankrupt. They got to bankrupt these people. We got to start again. That's my opinion. But anyways, they're saying it's going to go up 7% more this year to almost $12,000, $11,759 this year. Okay, that's your HOI. So we went over HOA, went over HOI. Let's keep going. Okay, this is the top 10 U.S. cities most expensive. Remember how I said it's not just, being on the coastal. Everyone pays for this. Some of these cities are insane. Look at Miami. First of all, Miami homeowners insurance average. I don't want to own. You know what I mean? If I'm in I'm gonna be happy renting. If I'm depressed, I'm gonna go take a walk at the beach, and I'm good. Miami 16,700, Fort Lauderdale 15,400, Hollywood 13,800, West Palm Beach 13,100, and let me go down here to Louisiana. All right, Louisiana's on this list, and that's really shocking because Louisiana's not doing too good. So they're saying Kenner, Louisiana, the average person 12,200. Why do you guys think that is? Hurricanes, Panhandle. They're getting rocked too. Everyone in the Panhandle. I'm in the Panhandle. I'm in near Houston. I'm paying elevated rates as well. New Orleans, look at that. $9,700. How could those people afford it? Look at this Ocean Springs, Mississippi. These are going to be areas, Melody, Jack.
They have the highest
Uninhabitable.
delinquency already right now. Mississippi and Louisiana have the highest delinquency. Yep.
Uninhabitable. You literally mathematically cannot afford to live there. It's so out of whack. It's insane. Mississippi, $9,400 in homeowners insurance. That's disgusting. Let's keep going. All right. To Melody's point, what is depopulation? So So record amount of collection and premiums from these insurance companies, and they still are going bankrupt. So let me read a little bit of this because to Julius's point, and Melody talked about this, and I haven't done a lot of research, but basically Citizens Insurance is somehow subsidized by the state. But the state's like, yo, citizens, we can't keep doing this. So they're allowing private companies to come into citizen policyholders to try to take over the policy. And sometimes when they take over that policy, guess what happens? Do you think it's just dollar for dollar take over the policy, guys? No. So, like Julius, I think Julius made the comment. His policy went up, I think, $3,000. So, and that was a depopulation letter. So these people are getting letters, and Citizens is almost out. Let me read this, okay? Florida law requires that Citizen create programs, see again, subsidized through the state, to help return citizen policies to the private market and reduce the risk of assessments for all Floridians. That would be nice, but it's actually increasing the assessment costs because of the fraud and overvaluation and lack of what? Income growth. If we had the income growth, then we probably wouldn't have as much fraud, to be honest. The depopulation program works with the private market insurance companies. And this is so crazy. How do they have access interested in offering coverage to citizen policyholders? How do they get my information? Did I give them permission to review my insurance information? So Citizen in the state is giving my insurance information to private companies to see if they can take it over. I wonder what subsidy they're getting for that. Approved takeout companies can offer to take over citizens' policy insurance at any time during the period. Policies that, okay, and then they're asking, do I have to leave Citizens? And they're saying that policies that receive an offer coverage that is not more than 20% greater than Citizens' premium are not eligible to remain with Citizen. Did you hear what that just said? Do you even
not more than 20%? 20%.
Yeah. What does that tell you about Citizens, Melody?
Well, they're insolvent. That's what it tells me. But
they're broke and dead in the water.
Yep.
Jack, anything? You look you're having a exciting moment over there.
The one thing I hear a lot about is that, in Florida, the government is subsidizing insurance because it's becoming so expensive for people. And let me just say that you can never eliminate risk. All right. You've got hurricane risk, you've got construction risk. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you can't eliminate it. You can only move it. And what they're doing when the state government starts to subsidize risk is that is a transfer of wealth from people who don't own homes to people who do own homes, because everybody pays taxes, homeowner, non-homeowner alike. And when the government comes in and bails out insurance companies or bails out homeowners by providing insurance at a cost to taxpayers, that's a transfer of wealth from property owners, a lot of boomers in Florida property owners, at the expense of young people who can't afford homes. So this is one of the ways that the government is endlessly inflating home values, because if they didn't do this, people would sell their homes and the prices would drop because the insurance made them unaffordable. And maybe those prices drop until some of these younger folks can afford to come in and buy them. But that's not being allowed to happen. Subsidizing insurance is one of the many ways we endlessly inflate home values.
What are they going to do to fix this, Jack?
It sucks. I'm not saying that you can eliminate the risk. You can't. But the fact is, this is a risk that belongs to the property owners. And it sucks if you're one of those property owners. But why should your poor neighbor who doesn't own a house foot the bill for something that affects only your house? That's not fair.
I get that. Well, why should these property homeowners pay, an increased assessment and bill when a lot of that has to do with fraud and corruption?
I agree with that, but ultimately it is their home. The fraud and corruption happened decades ago. So
it's a multi-level.
That's already happened. And, we can talk about the cause of that and what triggered it. But the fact is that fraud happened decades ago, and now they're suffering because of it. That doesn't mean their neighbor who doesn't own their condo has to pay for it.
It's bad, man. I mean,
life sucks sometimes. It doesn't mean
owning a home,
I
was going to say, owning a home is not the same anymore. At least
it's a tricky proposition. It is a complicated, it's very complicated and emotional, right? But you cannot walk into it blind. It will wreck you financially for a very long time.
Do you own the home that you live in, Melody?
No, it's owned by someone in my family, but
my point is, I think you're a great person, and I think that your knowledge and your research and your intel is great. I don't think that you owning a house has to do with your merit or what you give back to society or any of that type of stuff. Like we're taught to believe that's how we were raised. That's how I was raised as a child. Get a house, you can live your life now. That's step number one. That ultimately led to my foreclosure, my first foreclosure.
Debt slavery.
All right, let's keep going. So this is insurance. All right. So all we do is HOA, HOI. Let's keep going. Property taxes. Oh my God. So property taxes are like one of the worst as well. All right, let's read it. So you guys want to own yet? And if you are going to own, I'm not trying to beat people up. I'm at the very least, please be hyper cautious, like hyper paranoid, hyper cautious. And if you still are in love and you want to do it and all these other things fit, you have money left over, it's something you can afford, you maybe find some wedge, then, dig in, man, and have a happy life. But don't think you can only have a happy life by owning. So change in median property taxes from 2019 to 2023. Now, as far as the U.S., the whole U.S. got messed up, but the U.S. averages a 21.6% increase. But if you see Florida here, Florida is, again, I don't know how it got worse than Texas. I didn't think it was possible that people had worse tax problems in Texas. Maybe the fraud is worse in Texas. I don't know. But Florida's property taxes in that amount of time has gone up. And this is only to 2023, 34.9%. That is so again, leading the state for insurance, special assessment, HOA, and property taxes. So Melody, you may win. Eventually you may win because they're struggling. And you want to know what? I'm not laughing at this. That's not fair to these homeowners. That's not fair to the natives and to the local. What's happening right there? All of this stuff you see here, it's not entirely these people's fault. It's not. This is other people's fault. These people should be thriving. Our taxes should not go up at 1, 2, 3, 4%. It should match our income, right? Or actually, don't tax me at all. But it is what it is. Anyways, median property tax for single-family homes in Florida swelled 35% over the past 5 years. Why it matters, the state's property tax spike is 10% points higher than the U.S. average, adding to the rising cost of home ownership. And as of 2023, the average property tax was $3,003. My property tax is over $10,000 a year. I don't live in that house. I've kind of got, and I try to sell my house, guys. I try to sell my house. I didn't want to be a landlord. I am, but I tried to sell it. Not even one person looked at it, and I listed it this season. But that's property taxes out of control. Let's keep going. All right, take a look at this. Then that leads us to here. Okay, this is pretty important, right? This is prices. So let's see how this is affecting prices. And again, Melody, you may get me, Melody, but look at, all right, these are the top metro areas, condos, okay, with price decline. Now, this is year over year. This is actually really surprising to me. Number one, Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, we're only looking at condos, guys. This is not SFR. This is only condominiums. So it's only looking at that part of the market. So not the entire pie. I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not saying every house in Jacksonville is down 6.6, but the condos are down 6.6% year over year. Okay, Jacksonville, Florida. That's interesting. Tampa, Florida is number two, down 4.9% for the price of condos year over year. And then look at Portland, Oregon. That's interesting. I wonder if that's the crime. Do you think it's the crime and overtaxation in Portland? Could be. Could be. I don't know. But that sucker's down 4.3%. And you know what else? It could be the demographics, Melody, of population decline. Do you think that we're seeing Oregon on that list for condos because of population decline, or do you think it's unrelated?
Well, why? We're talking about Portland, right? I mean, Portland is borderline lawless. So
Yeah. And yeah,
it's
and
not
the
surprising why people are leaving.
depopulation, yeah, and the people leaving, yeah, absolutely, it's insane.
Okay, Fort Lauderdale, number 4 at 4.2. I mean, look at, why weren't these on the list before? Because it's only condos. Get it, guys? Look at San Jose. There's San Jose. We were talking about San Jose is on the year-over-year decline list, 3.2. Do you guys remember when San Jose was like the leading metro area, like every month?
And it's
like,
still the highest median price right now in my cities, the 80 cities I track. It's the number one highest price in the country.
it's here. Look at, so on this list for condos, it's the highest too. So the average condo is 750. That's insane. But let's keep going. Pittsburgh, interesting, down 2.8%. Miami also down 2.2. Let me go to the bottom. Philadelphia down 0.7. Dallas, interesting, 0.8. Boston, 0.9. And there's Riverside, 1%. So what we have on here, we got Florida. We got a lot of Florida. We got a lot of California, and we got some Texas. It seems like those are the 3 states. Where's Arizona though? Like ketchup, Arizona. You know what I'm talking about? In Nevada. You know what I mean? Like, what's up, Las Vegas? Someone's winning on those slot machines.
Las Vegas is in trouble. You're
But
starting to see it.
anyways,
Anyway, go ahead.
No, whoops, that was the wrong
Well, hello.
button. Yeah, hello, nice to see. But that, that's it in a nutshell. That's the data. When it comes to what's going on with the condos, I think it's a little bit easier to understand why so many issues. You got the safety issue probably leading the way because they're collapsing on themselves. And yes, we need to keep people safe, but in order to do that, you're bankrupt. Kind of a bad situation.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, Travis, why, so obviously that Surfside collapse was horrible. And they, basically did this law. And I think what's been so shocking to me is that they've had some time to get prepared for this. But of course, everybody waited to the last minute. The same on the insurance. I wrote about the insurance issue in October of 2022. Okay. Basically 2 years ago. But this just says so much about humanity in the sense of that we just ignore problems until it's too late. But what do you think the government response is going to be? Because I think I shared some clips with you just about, just the seniors are getting completely, they don't have this money.
Well, and I see we have some super chats. I'll throw those up, but I think that it's going to be a very polarizing issue, as it should be, especially because, as a country, we promised our retired that we're going to take care of them through Social Security. We have to take care of the retired people. We, as a society, we have to do that. We have to take care of our people. And so it's going to be polarizing, and there's going to be a subsidy, Melody. There's going to be some type of bailout. I think it's going to be, instead of maybe they'll bail out the car industry like they did in GFC, but I think there's going to be a massive bailout for insurance companies. And also I'm interested to see if there's going to be some type of government the government, like with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, how it's private, but actually the government owns Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the taxpayers. They may make a FEMA, like FEMA's government. That's flood insurance. You have to get your flood insurance from FEMA. There may be something special done for these these areas like we're in, the high cost areas in the panhandle with the weather catastrophes. I don't see how else it can fix itself, Melody, because it's corrupt, it's fraudulent, it's layers upon layers of fraud. And what do you do?
It can fix itself, Travis, if the homeowner is forced to truly bear the cost of the risk of the home he owns or she owns, then the value of that home would come down because that risk would be priced in instead of transferred to the taxpayers where it is footed by people who don't or can't own homes, right? The free market will solve this problem, but it'll really suck for the people who own it. And the people who own it right now are the wealthier among civilization, among society. The baby boomers, let them eat the cost. It sucks for them, but it's not fair to the younger generations to force them to foot the bill for their wealthier counterparts.
I mean, I think what we don't realize or understand is that we live in abundance in this country. Abundance. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have extreme third world level poverty as well. Where I'm from in Mississippi, I can tell you they still get typhoid fever. They still don't have enough to eat. It is third world country in many places in this country. But we still have abundance. But when you watch these videos of these seniors, Jack, it is absolutely heartbreaking. They're not living at McMansions. This is a 1-bedroom condo. Yep. They worked their entire lives to be in this 1-bedroom condo in Florida. They are not living. I mean, there's a ton of people living way above their means, but they were promised that this is what they could have. And so I get it too. Like, we all are going to have to, we've gotten used to a lifestyle that was largely on the back of someone like China and these places where we could buy all this cheap goods, and we've gotten used to a certain kind of abundance. So we are going to have to do something differently, but my heart goes out to these people that worked all their lives in somewhere like Pennsylvania, in a factory or so, and they thought this was it, and they could afford it, and they did all the math, and someone's coming in and telling them, you've got $100,000 assessment, game over. And I totally agree that, this was my question that I posed 2 years ago. What is a home worth that you can't insure? I mean, what do you guys think?
If I am that person, and I'm not trying to jump on the hate on boomer bandwagon or anything like that, but fact is the baby boomer generation
I know that.
Far wealthier than the Gen Zers, right? Far wealthier than the millennials and even the Gen Xers. If I'm in one of those condos and I get hit with $100,000 assessment, I'm going to stop paying. I'm done. I'm walking away from the property. I will walk into the bank. Here's the keys. Good luck with your condo, and I'm out. And that sucks. It really does. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to stick my kids with the bill. My kids already can't afford to even rent a lousy apartment. So as much as it is not fair to the senior, and I agree with that, they were promised a retirement and they deserve a retirement, but this did happen. We have no right to then therefore just transfer that pain to the young. They're already paying for more than these kids didn't do anything. They were born into this situation. Yeah. So why should they have to pay for a bad deal, a deal that went south for someone that isn't even related to them? It's not fair to them either.
And then we know that really the idea that it's boomer versus Gen Z or millennial or whatever, that's really, I think, a social construct. And that what Travis was saying is that the reason we're here is because of all the embedded fraud. And so I think often, and my only point, and because I know, Jack, I know you're not just hating on the boomer. I mean, I know, but we have to keep in mind. Yeah. We have to keep in mind too that not all the boomers are rich, and it's people over 55 that are the highest increase to our homeless population. And I know several people, my parents, teacher, nurse, how much inflation, true inflation, not what the CPI says. It is unlivable. What they are getting in Social Security. And so it is a complicated problem. We should not be fighting one another. The boomers shouldn't be fighting the Gen Zers or the millennials. We need to be fighting the fraud, because there are solutions. They could delay this implementation, right? They could do all kinds of things, but these our politicians refuse to get off their you-know-whats. And I think that that's what's going to happen. I mean, I saw it last year so I spent 2 months down in Miami last year because I knew I'm going to win, Travis. Anyway, but I'm just teasing you. I knew that it was bad. And I went there. They broke a story in Pembroke Pines of this massive blue collar retiree condo community. Basically, they went in and stormed the office when they got their notice about their HOA going up due to insurance. This was before the assessments. This was just insurance. The police had to be called. I mean, this old man got thrown on the street. I mean, it was absolute mayhem because they came in and said, we can't afford this. And I went to that area and you could see that they were not living above their means. The very modest community. But what's going to happen, because these seniors have nowhere to go, if they hand over the keys, they have nowhere to go. They're going to come out. I really do believe this. They're going to come out in force in Florida. And you're starting to see that. But as always, our politicians did absolutely nothing, in my opinion. Yeah, it was called Century Village. I wrote about it at the time when I was down there. But guys, we have to demand, if you live in Florida, we're not dissing on your state. We're saying you have to demand better from your politicians.
And also, my point is, and I understand both sides of the coin, and I don't want more inflation. I don't want more government intervention. But the fact of the matter is, I'm talking about the senior citizens that are victims. Those are the ones I'm not talking about the boomers that are well off. I'm talking about the ones that are 55 and up and the biggest homeless people that are going homeless. Those are the people I'm talking about. That's the failure of society. And that's why I lean towards, I understand the fraud. And it's not fair to them. They were promised something. They lived their life a certain way. The government said, we're going to give you Social Security. We got you. And also, and I hear what you're saying, Jack, on like, it's not fair to the young kids, but the young kids just got a whole bunch of stimulus too. These young kids have a tight labor market. These young kids have stuff as well. And so I get what you're saying, but the money never goes to the right people. The money's going to the wrong people. If the money went to the right people, then we wouldn't even be in this situation.
A bad thing happened.
So I just,
government will only make it worse.
But my point is this, Jack. My point is this. I know it. I know that. I know they will, but I wish we had a way to directly help the people that need it.
Okay,
that's my point.
Here's what Emperor Jack, if this was the People's Republic of Jackistan, this is how I would handle the problem. All right. And first you have to understand where the problem came from. The Surfside Condo was built in 1981, much like the entirety of Miami was built in the 1980s. Miami, 1980s. Do you see where we're going here? I've got the Miami Vice theme song playing in my head. You see, in the 1980s, Miami's entire economy was fueled by this magic South American white energy powder that was flying into the country by the billions of dollars. I'm not kidding. The whole freaking city was built by cocaine. All right. The buildings,
and it was built by liquor in the Great Depression.
They were built by construction guys who were jacked up on this stuff. And they bribed corrupt local government officials who were also jacked up on this stuff. And I'm telling you, after Surfside collapsed, I remember I was listening on a conversation between my dad and my Uncle Jerry, who was a contractor in Florida in the 80s. And he was saying, this is cocaine that did this, that killed this. And he's saying, and I wish I had interviewed Uncle Jerry on my channel after this, because he was saying this is going to happen over and over again. It's been 40 years. These guys had no idea what they were doing. They had all this drug money. They were laundering it through real estate. They were building garbage buildings, and they're going to go look now. And when they find it, these people are going to realize that all of these buildings are ready to collapse. And here we are a few years later, and all of these big assessments are hitting because they're realizing all these coked out contractors built coked up buildings with cocaine money in Cocaine City. And my God, I'm getting us flagged now because I just repeated cocaine over and over again. But that's what happened in Miami, guys. That's where this problem came from. So who should foot the bill for it? How about
the drug dealers?
Intelligence agency that was using cocaine money to foment anti-communist rebellions all over the world? We know this now in hindsight. So who is the most directly culpable here in the United States besides the coked up guys who built the buildings? It would be the CIA that was financing it. And so let's make a new insurance fund. We'll take the money directly out of the CIA budget, take a few years off from starting wars in foreign countries, and just see how it goes. And maybe then we'll see. That's how Emperor Jack would handle this.
Amen.
ruling the People's Republic of Jakistan. But guys, this is just Escobar's hippos in a different form. That's what's going on in Miami right now. And pay attention in China, because we're 30 years into a housing boom in China built by people who have no business building things. And I'm telling you, China's going to have the same problem for decades.
Let me throw up these super chats. I forgot to do that real quick. And then Melody's got the last story here. We appreciate your, I can't even talk right now, support. Now you're going to put the hat on? But you're on mute. Why are you putting the hat? You're on mute.
Yeah, I should have put that on before then, but there's my CIA cocaine rant about the Surfside collapse. It's Pablo's hippos, man.
I think you should keep the hat on. Keep the hat on.
Okay.
All right. No, we appreciate your support. This is a comment. No question. Just wanted to send some love. You guys deserve 100 times the audience. Thank you, brother. Thank you for what you guys do. We appreciate you too. Thank you for listening. And most importantly, we hope that you are being empowered, and never let anyone do the thinking for you, right? You could trust people, but verify. So we appreciate the support so much. And then we got one from Mark. Mark, thank you. I'm a Jack fanboy. So am I, Mark. Just don't tell Jack that. He was in the business. I still do. NEA. I think we're all a little bit fanboys.
Nuclear Energy Association. He's agency, I believe, the NEA. A fellow nuke. Thank you, Mr. Welsh. Appreciate the super chat, sir.
All right, it must be an insider nuke thing right there. That's interesting. You know what? We're definitely gonna get banned. Let's say something nice.
COVID, we got
are good. No, oh my God.
Unicorns, rainbows.
Okay, all right, Melody, you're up.
We're gonna come up with code words, right? Okay, so when we're talking about these issues, we'll call it like, one's called a unicorn or a rainbow. People will know what we're talking
powder.
about.
I mean, there's so
right.
many
We got to
things.
come up with some words for these
Corona.
topics.
Oh yeah, Corona. I mean,
Yeah.
Jack was just keep that sucker on, Jack. You getting some? Look at you. If you love tinfoil hat rants, hit like and I mean, MNJ. If I want one of those hats.
Me too.
I know a guy. I'll get you a hat.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Are we doing the next, Trav? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the last story that we have today is this is about a DOJ investigation into a prison that was the sole private prison. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. I actually have a connection to this story. I hope to be interviewing an inmate there in a couple of weeks, an extended family member, and has confirmed that this place is absolutely horrendous. But essentially, the Justice Department announced that it has opened an investigation into the conditions at Truesdale Turner Correctional Center, a Tennessee Department of Correction facility operated by the private correctional management company Core Civic. It's about an hour outside of Nashville. It's Tennessee's largest correctional facility. So I'm hoping to actually do a Nashville city tour when I go to interview this inmate. But based on an extensive review of publicly available information and information gathered from stakeholders, the department has found significant justification to open this investigation, including state audits that have flagged dangerous understaffing and safety concerns since Truesdale first opened in 2016. The investigation will examine whether Tennessee protects those incarcerated at Truesdale Turner from harm, including physical violence and sexual abuse. All right. So publicly available information suggests that Truesdale Turner has been plagued by serious problems since it first opened its doors. This includes reports of staffing shortages, physical and sexual assaults, murders, and a 188% turnover rate among prison guards just last year. Although Core Civic owns and operates Truesdale, the state of Tennessee is ultimately responsible for the safety of the people incarcerated there. This investigation seeks to determine whether Tennessee is meeting its constitutional obligations. Okay, since the 2,500 inmate facility opened in 2016, there has been endemic violence, including 196 assaults, 2 murders, and I actually think that's low. The inmate I'll be talking to has witnessed some of those murders, and 90 incidents of sexual misconduct in the years spanning July 2022 through 2023. I love how they say the years spanning. That was 1 year, right? 1 year and 1 month. Okay. Anyway, another 15 deaths that period were classified as accidents, and large amounts of contraband have been confiscated. And I can tell you from speaking to this prisoner, that they fear for their safety. They do not feel that the guards will protect them, and so they've had to take some matters into their own hands. And so, though the state of Tennessee, I just want to repeat this, is responsible for the facility. My point is Tennessee is responsible, but it's operated by Core Civic, which we're going to talk a lot about, a private management company. Federal officials said several state audits starting in 2017 have highlighted dangerous conditions and safety concerns. And so this story is going to be focusing on that public-private partnership and how it always seems to go awry. Again, that global grift we were talking about. So in reality, Tennessee only allows one privately run state prison facility, but state officials have reportedly skirted the restrictions by leasing facilities to counties, which in turn use subcontracts to bring in private management firms. Core Civic operates at least 4 of Tennessee's 14 state prisons, including Truesdale. But the responsibility lies with the state of Tennessee to uphold the rights of incarcerated people. Okay, who is Core Civic? Okay, just like most companies, as of 2017, Core Civic shares are mainly held by Vanguard, BlackRock, and Fidelity. Okay, you can see though that their stock price has gone into the toilet, and they probably haven't been doing share buybacks. I don't know that for sure, but that seems to be what keeps some companies going. But as of 2016, the company is the second largest private corrections company in the United States. It manages more than 65 state and federal correctional and detention facilities with a capacity of more than 90,000 beds in 19 states in the District of Columbia. In 2012, their revenue exceeded $1.7 billion. By 2015, its contracts with federal correctional and detention authorities generate up to 51% of its revenues. What was KPAL saying in the comments section about Musk? If it wasn't for his government contracts, he probably would be nowhere, right? It's these government contracts that are causing a lot of this inflation and also just it feels as if it's an abnegation of responsibility in many ways. Okay, do you guys remember Orange is the New Black? Did you guys watch that series? No,
I didn't watch it. I remember it.
Okay, so it was actually a funny series about the main character was housed in one of these privately managed prisons. And they spent a lot of time focusing on these issues of short staffing because of this private management, as well as the death of an inmate because of these poorly trained guards. And so, it was a funny series. I would encourage people to kind of go back and watch it because it really is about this whole thing that actually started back in the 80s, guys. So again, the stuff doesn't happen overnight. So in 1983, the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, essentially awarded a contract to CCA, which is their old name. Like some other bad actors, they changed their name because they had such a bad reputation, right? But essentially, this first contract was all about immigration. And so they opened the Houston Processing Center in 1984 in your neck of the woods, Travis. And that center was built to house individuals awaiting a decision on immigration cases or repatriation. It opened the Leavenworth Detention Center that was operated for the U.S. Marshals in 1992. And thank you, KPAL Correction Corporation of America. They've done work in the UK. The stockholders are mostly corporate entities, and it is classified, get this, guys, as a real estate investment trust. It always comes back to real estate. 85% of global wealth. It's
the prison is an Aria. Is it a REIT?
Yeah. The company that operates these prisons.
What the F? Jesus. just keep dividing the money. You know, there's no assets. Just keep splitting up the money. Split up the money.
Yeah.
Crazy.
In 2010, the ACLU filed a lawsuit on behalf of inmates at the Idaho Correctional Center, claiming that the understaffing contributed to the high levels of violence there. In 2014, the Federal Bureau of Investigation began an investigation into CCA management of the ICC to ascertain whether any federal statutes were violated because of the understaffing of the facility and what was found to be falsification of staffing records. In 2016, the Obama administration provided CCA a $1 billion, no bid contract to detain asylum seekers from Central America. Okay. So immigration's a big money business as well, right? Okay, so just a couple of more things that I want to say here. Okay, this is just mainly a repeat, but this I thought was interesting. Okay. In 2016, the Deputy U.S. Attorney General announced that the Justice Department intended to end its Bureau of Prisons contracts with for-profit prison operators because its own analysis concluded the facilities are both less safe and less effective at providing correctional services than the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They simply do not provide the same level of correctional services. And so one of the last things I want to mention, this is where you really see how the incentives in our society have just become completely perverted. In 2012, CCA sent a letter to prison officials in 48 states offering to buy prisons from these states in exchange for a 20-year management contract with a guaranteed occupancy rate of 90%. Many community organizations have criticized the proposals, arguing that the contractual obligations of states to fill the prisons to 90% occupancy are poor public policy, creating an incentive to criminalize behavior and lengthen sentences in order to keep the prisons filled. And I can tell you absolutely from what I've understood about Truesdale, they have no interest in letting people out. This is just a side note for maybe a future story, but one of the board members is Thurgood Marshall Jr., the son of Thurgood, former now deceased Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. And so this is something I'll be running down. I don't have any more to say on it now, but I'm going to be doing some more investigation. And that's it.
I do have some comments. So what we have here is we have a multi-billion-dollar industry that treats human beings like animals and rats. And we have a society that doesn't care because it's like, hey, you committed the crime, lock them up. But when we take a step back as a society and we ask, why do people go to jail? It's a correction facility. And so what I see here is, well, I believe in our police officers for sure. So I got to be careful here. You know, there's bad people involved, but what they're doing though with these facilities, Melody, is they're profiting off of the hardships of these people. They're not correcting any of the behavior. From what I can see, they're making the situation worse. When people go to jail, often they're stuck in the system and then they go back to jail. So if it was a true, and the thing that the reason they do that, from my opinion, is because it's more profitable to keep people in the pain. It's not profitable to cure people. And you see that too with these correction facilities, treating them like rats. I mean, I get it. They did a crime, pay for your crime, but then be forgiven. You shouldn't, jaywalk and then potentially go to jail and get raped. Excuse my language. You know what I mean? So, it's corrupt just like everything else. It's when you have a multi-billion-dollar company. Did you say it's on the stock market as well?
Yeah, it is. And National Disgrace just made a really good comment. Guys, it's all big business. So they just passed a law that is regulating how much they can charge for people for these prisons to call into the prisons. Like, because if you want to talk to an inmate, you have to like pay an amount on a gift, like a card or whatever, prepay it. And they were gouging citizens. I mean, unbelievable. Now, is regulation the right way to go? I don't know. But the other thing is they can't get photos. That oftentimes in the mail, they make it very difficult. So there's a whole website called Inmate Photos where you can pay a ton of money and they will print those photos and send them to the prison. I mean, this is such a scam. It is unbelievable. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to have a lot more on this story, but I just wanted to set the foundation. But keep going, Travis.
Well, no, there's a comment here. So, and again, I'm not defending criminals committing crimes. Okay. What I'm pointing out is the people that are in charge of the criminals are also committing crimes because of things probably like human nature and their inability to not be corrupt. But then again, there are good people too, I'm sure, that work there. Right. So I'm not saying everyone, but this is an
188% turnover. Yeah.
Dang, from
Guys,
CD.
this
Right,
is not.
you know, this is it. This is the last point I want to make. The lawyers getting paid. So you're talking about the scam, but public defenders and the lack of legal fair representation is also a scam. It's circular.
And I'd say, Melody, the most alarming thing, besides the human rights abuses and, the 188% turnover among guards, right? That means you're not paying these guys enough. And that also means the ones who stay are probably guys who are profiting in other ways from their job, i.e. sneaking things in and
that's right.
stuff like
Because
that.
there's a whole counter. Yeah. Economy.
So, I mean, that really needs to be looked into. But the 90% guarantee, creating a financial incentive to incarcerate people, that is twisted. That show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome, right? That's a famous Charlie Munger quote. They just created an incentive to put people in jail. And this hits close to home to me because it was just a few years ago in my home state here in Pennsylvania, there was a scandal called Kids for Cash. And I couldn't remember the names. I was looking at this while you were presenting, Melody. There was 2 judges in Pennsylvania who were exposed for accepting bribes from a private company that ran a juvenile prison. And thousands of juvenile convictions were overturned because of these 2 dirtbag judges and the private company that was bribing them. They were sending kids to juvenile detention for trespassing, for bashing assistant principals on MySpace, like petty crimes. And these kids were ending up in juvenile detention, which in a lot of aspects, guys, it's a freaking gladiator academy, right? These kids don't come out nicer than they went in.
Right. Right.
These kids are irreparably harmed while this is going on. And it's all because a financial incentive to incarcerate children was created. And guys, if you create the incentive, some dirtbag is going to step in to profit from it. And that's what happened with these judges in Pennsylvania. And I guarantee you that is happening in Tennessee in this case because of that 90% guarantee. You've just created a financial incentive. You're like, well, we're only at 89%. It's sentencing time for this guy. He's on the fence whether we're going to send him to jail. Yep. Well, he fills the quota. Put him in jail.
That's so messed up.
Right. So great research, Melody. And this is an important topic. And as very much as I'm like, rapists and murderers, like lock them up and throw away the key. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who possibly could be rehabilitated or people who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and made mistakes, but still have a chance at being productive members of society. But now
that's a lot of people in Tennessee. Yeah, that's a lot of people in Tennessee.
And also keep in mind, hey, like a lot of these guys fell into the legal system because of a pharmaceutical industry that got hooked on opioids to begin with for profit. And, they went to the hospital for treatment and they ended up at a Steward healthcare facility where the private equity firm is running the hospitals into the ground and they come out hooked on dope.
Jeez. Doesn't sound like America.
I'm going to try to get the percentage, but Jack, what you just talked about, the opioid crisis, getting them hooked on fentanyl and all these different, that is most of that prison, honestly. And I mean, I see it in East Tennessee everywhere. Like it is everywhere. We don't have good jobs here. It is very difficult to find a job to make a living wage here. And as such, people go and they do alternative means of making money, and which often is a combination of government assistance and the drugs, And so, but a lot of these folks, that is truly it. They were addicted. They got in trouble. And now they're being kept there, even though they are showing that they have rehabilitated. And, so it's very interesting. I would also like to look at the difference between kind of the retention rate at privates versus public, because I think it's probably very, very different.
We got a couple comments. super chat right here from Steve. Steve is an appraiser, actually. He's been emailing me about all this property tax, the use PAP, the mass appraisal, the algorithms. I appreciate you, Steve. I will check that out. He sent some information for the course that I'm building for free. Thank you, brother. Here's another super chat as well from Cold Grape Sodas. That does sound good. Am I right? Does a cold grape soda sound good right now, Melody? That sound pretty good? That sounds good to me.
Travis, you
real good
asked
to
the
me.
hard-hitting questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And then also they're saying, you just want to give a shout out on some grape soda though. Trust the data, trust the science scam. I'm pretty sure they're being facetious, but I'm not being facetious about the show, about the soda. I can't even talk right now. Here's an interesting one right here. I wanted to pull up, I want to ask each of you, but I wanted to use this comment as a segue into my question. This is from P Nice responding to someone in the chat. They're saying, I often have guilt that I have made it so far. So I want to pause on that. I want you guys to think about that. And I want to ask you if you guys have had that before. And they go on, I always try to guide anyone listening. I wish I had more people to guide me. Thank you for YouTube. And here's what I want to ask you guys, because I fall into that too. I have a guilt all the time. Do you live with any type of guilt, Melody?
Oh yeah.
And what do you do about that guilt?
Well, that's a lot of why I do what I do. I mean, many of my family members don't live above the poverty line. And I also have family members that are super in the top 20%, but I'm from the South. I'm from the deep South. And you don't get a lot of chances in the deep South. And I did get a lot of chances. Now I made stupid decisions like taking out education loans, but I feel it every time, all the time. And I feel it as my absolute duty to do whatever I can to help people that didn't have those advantages and opportunities. But that's me personally.
What about you, Jack? You got any guilt over there with that under that tinfoil hat of yours?
I got my share of regrets, but guilt, no. I sleep pretty easy at night, Trav. I mean, I'm fortunate. I've had a lot of good breaks in my life, and I'm grateful for them. And I try to show that by service to others with things I do on the side. And no, I honestly, I don't feel guilt. I've got regrets, bought a house in 2006, that kind of stuff. What happened to Star Wars, but that's not on me.
And I would say that guilt is kind of a selfish emotion sometimes, you know what I mean? And so guilt is probably not exactly the right word. It's more, I feel responsibility to do what I can to educate, empower, and if someone comes in my path that I can assist or give an advantage to, then I feel like it's my responsibility to pay it forward. So to me, guilt is kind of a silly, like, don't, Catholic guilt, all that. Don't sit in guilt. Guilt's that's not action. That's just feeling bad. Right. And so in reality, take responsibility or just do something, whatever it is, whatever little thing you can to help people when you can. And I think that's honestly what we're trying to do on this show.
Nice. I mean, I like it. I mean, so guilt can be a motivation to be responsible.
It can, but don't sit in it and do nothing. That's just a waste of energy, in my opinion.
I got another one here for you. This pertains to the gel. I don't know if you guys think this is serious or not, but just export them to India. It would be much cheaper. What do you think about that?
That's how you end up with an Australia, guys. The last time somebody came up with an idea like that, we got Australia. So I think that just put them on an island thing. We've tried that, and it doesn't go well ever. French Guiana. Yeah, no.
All right. Melody, here's one for you. Great show and excellent job on the condo HOA in Florida.
One for you. Great job, Travis.
Julius, she's front and she emailed me a whole bunch of stuff. She's like, can you do this? I was like, I got this. Appreciate you, though. I appreciate that. You're very humble. You shouldn't be so humble all the time. All right. So this is another one from Gypsy Tree. I like that name. U.S. government needs to suppress commodity prices to maintain the U.S. dollar. Silver at $29 is a pathetic joke. Jack, when does silver manipulation end? Does it ever end, Jack? It's unbelievable.
Silver manipulation, will it ever end? Probably not. I wouldn't mind. I mean, I got my little my little silver brick right here, my little America flag bar. I keep
What?
that one handy. I love my silver.
What?
As far as commodity price suppression, we actually prop up a lot of commodity prices, right? Like when it comes to ethanol, which I think is almost universally recognized as a horrible idea and a terrible investment, but because of stupid politics and the order in which we pick our primary candidates, no politician will touch ethanol subsidies. And so we are nonsensically driving up food prices because of some misguided climate agenda that ethanol does nothing to fix the climate. It actually makes it worse. So, I mean, some commodities, are they suppressed? Yeah, I do think they rigged the markets of gold and silver. That's not a conspiracy theory. You don't need this for that, because JP Morgan was labeled a criminal enterprise by the Department of Justice for hundreds of thousands of instances of spoofing metals prices over several years. That's not a theory. That's a documented fact. So will it end? I doubt it, because the fines are a fraction of the cost of the proceeds from the illegal activity. So it's just the cost of doing business.
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Melody, I got one for you, and maybe this will be the last one. Just depends on what you guys want to do. But this is, I think this would be a really good thing for you to answer. Human nature is what it is. It is the constant, unchanging variable. Would you agree with the reason why we always get into these troubles is because of human nature? Will you touch on that?
Yeah, so I think that is part of it, but I also think that that's, I'm a big fan of the fourth turning, the idea of the septum, and when you turn over the generations and you kind of lose that connection to the generation that was in turmoil. But I think that sometimes people take this as an excuse not to do anything. And I think that we all have to understand what our purpose is on this earth. And to me, I believe it's to make it a little better than it was when I got here. And so maybe I cannot change the core of my human nature, because it is what it is. But I can always aspire to be better, and I can always try and pay it forward. And I think that's what we have to focus on, because if I can just make it a little bit easier for my neighbor or help in some way, then to me, I've fulfilled my purpose as a human on this planet, because I truly believe that we're here to enrich the lives of others. And, it would be great if we could all learn from our mistakes, and maybe we can learn a little that if you think about this as a game, a simulation, and some people talk about it often, right? And we just kind of keep doing the same thing. I mean, maybe there is a way that we could actually get out of this cycle. I don't know that I truly believe that, but I am going to keep working toward it.
I want to just say beating human nature is super empowering. Choosing people over profit, super empowering. Just saying. Jack, you want to say anything else before Melody takes us out of here?
On the human nature thing, emphasis human nature. It's not capitalist nature or communist nature. It's human nature. And I think the tendency of everybody to say, oh, well, the government should do something every time something goes wrong. Let's remember the government is run by humans, some of the worst humans. So just because government is involved doesn't mean human nature has been magically legislated out of the decision-making process. It's usually the opposite. There's usually even more concentrated human nature and corruption. So that's why this reflex to always look to the government for our salvation, I think, makes things worse, because governments are humans too.
Well said, sir.
All right.
Melody?
You ready?
Yeah.
Ready? All right. I just want to say again, just so thankful for the community watching the chat while we're up here. It's awesome. I mean, there is just so much going on, such great conversations, such good people. I mean, it just makes me happy. I can't explain it. So I just want to say thank you so much for the support from our community. I mean, I know a lot of you are like, we need to have hundreds of thousands of followers. Well, that brings on a whole different thing as well. And what I'm really enjoying right now is just being able to connect with everybody and truly have dialogue. That's what we're actually doing here. I mean, we're not agreeing with one another. I think you guys can see that. We're actually challenging each other. But this is how you can have constructive dialogue. So I want to just say thank you actually to both of you, Jack and Travis, for all that you do out there every single day. It is not, if anybody thinks that content creation is easy, are that coming on here and bearing your soul in front of people is easy. It is not easy at all. And there are days when Travis and I talk that we think we can't even do it, because it's not easy. So I'm thankful to the two of you, what you do every day. I'm thankful for the community for showing up, engaging with us. So thank you so much. We will definitely see you again next week. We love doing this show. So thank you again. And always remember, math matters.